Empire of Steel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126 Xiao Wangxuan and number 039, S thoughts? The emperor has an arrangement. Empress Zhao was really taken aback and looked surprised, as was concubine Zhen. She had never heard of this from Xiao Wangxuan. Xiao Wangxuan nodded. The marriage of the prince of the Great Yu Kingdom is not a child's play. It must be for the sake of the country and the society of the Great Yu Kingdom. Yes, Your Majesty. Empress Zhao bowed her body and looked lost. As a result, her plan to further win over Xiao Ming failed. As if he didn't want to mention more, Xiao Wangxuan smiled and said to concubine Zhen, "Concubine Zhen, it is said that Xiao Ming created something called glass in Qingzhou. Princess Pingyang also went there because of her interest. I am also very curious. What the hell is glass?" The emperor is busy with government affairs these days, and the concubine does not dare to disturb the emperor, but this treasure the king Qi gave to his majesty has always been with me. Concubine Zhen looked ashamed. Xiao Wangxuan smiled and said, "It just so happens that King RB has nothing to do today, so he went to see what this glass is." Then he said to Queen Zhao, "Queen, you continue, don't ruin your mood to play because of me." "Yes, Your Majesty." Queen Zhao said. He knew that Xiao Wangxuan wanted to be alone with concubine Zhen. Wangxuan Xiao's face suddenly turned gloomy when he went to the Bishu Pavilion with concubine Zhen, and said sternly, "Concubine Zhen, do you know the guilt, concubine, convict?" Xiao Wangxuan is a character who has come through the wind and waves. It is impossible for him not to guess what happened today. Xiao Wangxuan said angrily, "Isn't this battle of princes not messy enough? Now you have involved Xiao Ming again. Do you know that you are hurting him?" Concubine Zhen was about to cry, and she said, "How come the concubine doesn't know what Empress Zhao means? But Ming'er is far away in Qingzhou, but so many ministers in the court maliciously slandered him, but the concubine can't avenge Ming'er, it's also helpless." With a sigh, Xiao Wangxuan said, "Are you really old and confused when you think I am? Can't I tell the truth from the fake by myself? I did treat Ming'er a little bit harsher, but that's not arrogant. If it's true I hate it to the core. Was he still alive 3 years ago, Your Majesty?" Concubine Zhen was stunned when she heard the words, but why did I send it to Qingzhou?" Xiao Wangxuan shook his head and said, "You often say that a beloved son of your parents has far-reaching plans. If you let a powerless prince get a rich fief, then it is he who is harming him, and now that he is far away from Chang'an, which prince will take him as a threat? The emperor is so mean and indifferent to him because he doesn't want Ming'er to be jealous of other princes?" Concubine Zhen asked in confusion. Xiao Wangxuan said proudly, "Don't be mean and strict with him. Will he restrain his perverse character? Now that he is doing everything in Qingzhou, it can be seen that my original decision was right, and I finally let him change it." No, concubine Zhen broke her tears into a smile. It was the concubine and Ming'er who blamed the emperor. It turns out that the emperor really had good intentions. Xiao Wangxuan helped concubine Zhen to sit down together. "That's why I don't want Ming'er to be involved in this battle for the throne again, and I ignore the rumors in the courtroom. If that's the case, the concubine will thank the Emperor Longjin on behalf of Ming'er." Concubine Zhen was delighted. Compared with Empress Zhao, this emperor is the real backer of the Great Yu Kingdom. Xiao Wangxuan gave her such a promise, but she doesn't have to worry anymore. However, if there is no such thing as today, it is estimated that Xiao Wangxuan will not reveal his thoughts coupled for more than 10 years. Concubine Zhen knows Xiao Wangxuan very well. This is a man who likes to hide his thoughts in his heart. Without this forbearance, he would not be able to get the position of the supreme today. You and I, husband and wife, why thank you, but until today, Xiao Ming can finally be of great use. Xiao Wangxuan said with a smile, "The reason why he is in such a good mood today is nothing but because a minister impeached Xiao Ming and slaughtered all the nobles in the fief as the monarch of a country." Xiao Wangxuan doesn't know the crux of today's Great Yu Kingdom. Today, the Great Yu Kingdom has been established for more than 200 years, and some problems in Jiangshan, society and Ji have been very difficult to resolve, and they are terminally ill. The most serious problem among them is that the other 6 big families are divided into regions, and the local aristocrats are divided into states and counties. He relied on the support of King Zhao to ascend to the throne, and he was most aware of the dangers of these opposite-sex kings. Today's battle for the throne seems to be a battle between princes, but in fact it is just a wrestling between kings of the opposite sex. As the power of the kings of the opposite sex becomes stronger and stronger, they are no longer satisfied with manipulating the prince, and the ambition of the wolf child is completely invisible. Therefore, knowing that Xiaoming was able to understand the wealthy family of the fief, he was first shocked, and then excited. It seemed that Xiaoming's pent-up dissatisfaction with the opposite-sex king was released by Xiaoming with a smile on her face. Concubine Zhen said, "Not to mention it can be of great use, as long as it doesn't cause trouble for your majesty." Xiao Wengsun said with a smile, "This time he really impressed me in front of other concubines." Xiao Wengsun rarely speaks bluntly now, because what he said will soon reach the ears of the vassal king behind him. Only in front of concubine Zhen would he feel very relaxed, and he didn't need to worry too much. There are many beauties in the harem, but there are several concubines he really chose by himself. It is not for the sake of securing the throne that he will accept one woman after another that he does not like. Only concubine Zhen was the one he took a fancy to during the draft, because this was a woman who didn't need him to think about what she was thinking. Because of this, he also loves Xiaoming deeply and hates him so much, and he is a person who doesn't like to explain, which is why the father does not know the son and the son does not know the father. Concubine Zhen pursed her lips and smiled, remembering Xiao Wengsun talking about choosing a concubine for Xiaoming, and asked, "Your Majesty, is it really true that you just said about choosing a concubine for Ming'er?" Speaking of this, Xiao Wengsun frowned and said, "The princess I want to choose for him is not a member of the wealthy family, but a member of the Fei family. This way, he will be safe for the rest of his life. After all, no matter what, he will only be a vassal king after all, you understand?" Concubine Zhen nodded. He understood Xiao Wengsun's meaning. Although Xiao Wengsun didn't hate Xiaoming as much as he appeared, he was not the one who loved him the most among the princes. It can only be said that this is a father's love for his son. What he has to consider in the end is the country and the country. At this time, Xiaoming is obviously not so important. After all, he has no weight. The Fei family. Concubine Zhen was pleasantly surprised, but the third prince of the fourth generation, the Fei family with disciples and officials all over the world, exactly, although the Fei family is not a local tyrant, nor is it a vassal king, but its reputation is unparalleled in the world. If Ming'er can marry someone from the Fei family, no matter who becomes the emperor in the future, he will always be concerned about the Fei family. Of course, the premise is Ming'er. There will be no intention of conspiracy. Xiao Wengsun said. Concubine Zhen secretly rejoiced in her heart. This Fei family was a prestigious family that many vassal kings wanted to marry. Chapter 127 Situation. The soft warm wind is gently rippling in the Bishu Pavilion, and the new green in the courtyard is filled with a touch of spring. Xiao Wengsun saw Concubine Zhen's delighted look. He smiled and said, "But you don't have to be happy too early. This Fei family is not easy to meet. King Qi's marriage will take some time. As long as this princess can be the daughter of the Fei family, it would be worthwhile for Ming'er to wait a few more years. It's just that your majesty should choose a better one for Ming'er in the Fei's family. Of course, at least she has to be a daughter of the main line of the Fei family to be worthy of my son." Although Xiaoming was not a lot in the past, but the prodigal son can change the money, and now he has to be worthy of his Fei family. Concubine Zhen nodded. "It's just the emperor, this Queen Zhao's place. You don't have to worry about this. The crown princess is the daughter of Fiji, who is in the middle of the dynasty. King Qi also took the daughter of the Fei family. It can be said that the relationship is further improved, and the queen will not stop it now. The concubine is at ease." Concubine Zhen said after talking about Xiaoming's marriage. Xiao Wengsun said at this time, "By the way, what about the glass that King Qi sent me? Here." Concubine Zhen led Xiao Wengsun to the inner room, where 9 crystal-clear glass goblets were placed in a delicate wooden box. When Xiao Wengsun saw it, he showed a look of surprise. He leaned over and picked up a goblet to examine it carefully. "Pure as water, as warm as jade. Is this glass really produced by the King Zhao workshop? It's still fake." These days, many businessmen have flocked to King Zhao for this glass. Concubine Zhen said. "This King Qi, I didn't give him taels to squander in the past, but now it seems that the 1,000,000 taels that I gave him is now disliked, but it's nothing more than doing business, and the government affairs of the fief cannot be delayed. After all, this catastrophe is coming soon." Xiao Wengsun frowned. "Cave?" Concubine Zhen suddenly had an ominous premonition. This year, the prairie barbarians suddenly banned the sale of war horses to the Great Yu Kingdom. I got news that this year the barbarians seem to want to cross Kangzhou and continue their journey south. Last year, the prairie snows caused heavy losses to the barbarians. They want to get this southern place where birds and flowers are fragrant. Concubine Zhen covered her mouth in surprise. Your Highness, if this is the case, what should we do? At the beginning, the great ancestor set the rules for the division of feudal vassals, so that the princes could be divided into vassal states. The upper part was the country, and the lower part was the people. The king of Qi was both a prince and a vassal king. This land of Kangzhou must be guarded by him, otherwise I will give it to you. What is the use of his vassal kingship? But your majesty, the barbarians in Kangzhou were ravaged 3 years ago, and now they haven't recovered to their former state. What can King Qi do to guard them now? Now there are 4 vassal kings guarding the north. One is King Zhao who guards Liangzhou, the other is King Liang who guards Lingzhou, the third is King Yuang, the prince of the royal family who guards Jizhou, and the fourth is guarding Kangzhou. King Qi in the north. These 4 vassal kings guarded the key places where the barbarians entered the central plains. Among them, the fiefs of King Zhao were famous for their black armored cavalry in the Great Yu Kingdom. Behind it is Chang'an, where the emperor of the Great Yu Kingdom is located. It is precisely because of this that Xiao Wangsun attaches so much importance to King Zhao, and King Liang's Black Feather Iron Guard is also famous far and wide. Different from King Zhao's tactics of cavalry against cavalry, King Liang built Yubao in the area bordering the fiefs and barbarians. Over the years, the barbarians have broken through several Yubaos, but the fiefs are still safe. King Yuang of Jizhou is Xiao Wangsun's youngest brother. The east side of his fief is Xiao Ming's fief. Compared with King Liang, King Yuang's situation is a bit worse. However, relying on the torches and crossbows, King Yuang repelled the attacks of the barbarians several times. After all, he was a relative of the royal family. The reason for this was that every time Xiao Wangsun would send the guards to support, the torches and crossbows of the Chang'an equipment division were also in large quantities. Transferred to King Yang. Compared with these 3 vassal kings, Xiao Ming was obviously the worst. King Zhao was very remote from Chang'an, and when the barbarians attacked, it was too late for rescue. Moreover, what happened 3 years ago greatly damaged King Zhao's vitality, and the people's livelihood was in ruins. Thinking of this, why is Concubine Zhen not worried? Concubine Zhen's words made Xiao Wangsun frown. You underestimate your son too much. Now King Qi has earned enough money in the past half a year to make up for the loss 3 years ago, and he is now reorganizing the King Zhao army. Not only with this kind of armor is very strange, and the military system similar to the government military system has been restored. Today, there are still 20,000 troops in his fief. You and I underestimate his ability. Now he has compiled the local tyrants. His soldiers must be at least 30,000 this time. So many? Concubine Zhen herself couldn't believe that Xiao Ming had reorganized the King Zhao army in such a short period of time, and the number had recovered to half of the King Zhao army in its heyday. There was a weird smile on the corner of Xiao Wangsun's mouth. Is this still fake? This kid also Wu Pang Yukin, the long-timer who I sent to him, but he thought I didn't know anything, or it was too naive. This child, what is the matter in this world that the emperor doesn't know? But the emperor, although King Qi is unworthy, but he will not dare to disobey the emperor. Concubine Zhen's heart jumped a few times, thinking that this King Qi it's really reckless. How dare the emperor dare to dig the corner of the wall? Seeing Concubine Zhen's worried look, Xiao Wangsun suddenly smiled and said, it doesn't matter, this Pang Yukin is already very annoying, so let him stay in King Zhao. I guess he also knows that he can't go back to Chang'an. This El not is enlightened. Then what the emperor means is that Kang Zhao will let King Qi guard it himself? Concubine Zhen asked tentatively. Exactly. What happened 3 years ago has already disgraced the royal family. If he can't keep Kang Zhao this time, he will die there. If he can keep it, he will be useful in the future. No matter who ascends the throne, he will still be there. Count on him to guard the north, otherwise he will still be a dead character, and if he keeps it, I will give him the daughter of the Fei family. Even if you will give up his face. Concubine Zhen felt a colic in her heart. She understood that Xiao Wangsun was not targeting Xiao Ming. Even if the prince came to guard Kang Zhao, Xiao Wangsun's attitude would still be the same. The prince fled. This is a shame for the royal family, and it will make the world laugh at it. She finally understood why Xiao Wangsun said that Xiao Ming's marriage would have to wait. How could a Fei family of 4 generations and 3 princes be willing to marry their daughter to a man who left his fief and his subjects and fled back to Chang'an? She also finally understood why Xiao Wangsun repeatedly said that Xiao Ming would rather die than see him in Chang'an. Looking in the direction of King Zhao, Concubine Zhen said in her heart, Ming'er, this time, you must strive to live up to your expectations. From then on, success or failure depends on this move. Chapter 128 The Dynasty. In the Bishu Pavilion, Xiao Wangsun played with a glass for a while. Seeing that concubine Zhen was still worried, she comforted, "But you don't have to worry, the barbarians going south is a major matter for the country, and I won't be kidding around. If King Qi can't hold it back, I will let King Wei send troops to help. It is King Yuan, and to the south is King Wei. If you still can't resist, there is also our imperial guards." Concubine Zhen wanted to say that King Wei might not be reliable, but she suddenly swallowed her words again. This was just a side word of Queen Zhao speaking out at this time. There is no concrete evidence to anger Xiao Wangsun. After all, Xiao Wangsun has always trusted Wei Wang very much. If this is the case, the concubine will be at ease. The only thing left is to see the will of God. I only hope that the emperor can support Ming'er more. Concubine Zhen said softly. Xiao Wangsun nodded, and seemed unwilling to talk about this topic again, but pointed to the goblet and said, "By the way, did King Qi say what the cup is used for? Is it also a decoration?" Ming'er said it was for drinking. He said that only the glass can see the transparency of the drunk King Zhao. Concubine Zhen said Xiao Wangsun seems to like the glass very much, and he can't put it down. Well, this is a good word. It is indeed a wonderful thing for drinking, but it seems to be too little. What's so difficult about this? Concubine Zhen smiled. I just ask him to send some more. This is not right. King Zhao is facing such a dangerous situation now, and I still take his things for nothing. Xiao Wangsun said. Concubine Zhen said with a smile, what the emperor said today is worth a countless glasses. How can it be taken in vain? Xiao Wangsun laughed when he heard the words. This concubine Zhen has always been smart, and her words are also extremely pleasing. After staying in the Bishu Pavilion for a while, Xiao Wangsun left with a glass. Even so, he still wanted to help Xiaoming. After all, this time the barbarians went south was not a matter for Xiaoming alone, but for the safety of the great Yu kingdom. But it was only a memorial 3 days later, and he knew what Xiaoming needed now. Kings, you have also read the documents of King Qi. There is solid evidence that the barbarians colluded with the King Zhao nobles to attack King Zhao in autumn. What should I do? In the Changqing Hall, Xiao Wangsun sat on the throne, and under the steps, the ministers were on both sides. Civil servants on the left, military officers on the right, and princes such as the prince are listed in the front. Your Majesty, the annual tribute required by the barbarians has increased year by year, and Yaozhou and other places have also been ceded to the barbarians, but the barbarians are still not satisfied, and they will still stare at our country of great Yu. It can be seen that the wild ambition of the barbarians will not die. This time, we can't let it go anymore. Only by fighting to stop the war can we deter the barbarians. A minister wearing a purple robe came out with an impassioned voice. As soon as his words fell, another minister came out and said, General Luo Quan's words are not good. The barbarians are fighting horses and soldiers this time, but they want to increase the amount of annual tribute, which is the case in previous years. Just need to give some money to pass. Now, if you go to war, it's really not worth it to waste people and money. I hope the emperor thinks twice. Dr. Kui, this is another tribute to the year. Is the tribute paid in recent years still small? The barbarians are fearful of power but not virtuous. The tributes given these years not only did not make the grassland people appreciate their virtues, but instead made the grassland people's soldiers better. There are more horses, more food and grass, and sharp swords. I am afraid that the more tribute this year, the more unstoppable the army of barbarians will be. After a few years, the great Yu kingdom will be destroyed and the species will be wiped out. Luo Quan glared angrily and scolded. Kui Hao's face turned red, and he also said angrily, General Luo is really not at home. I don't know how expensive it is to eat rice, oil and salt. Have you counted how much money this battle will cost? Have you counted how many soldiers will be killed and wounded? The important thing is that we can beat him. With the sharpness of Zhao Wang's troops and horses, he is still at a disadvantage. Who can fight the barbarians in King Zhao? That is, if it weren't for the annual tribute, when the king of Zhao Liangzhou was surrounded, would the barbarians withdraw their troops? A bunch of cowards. It's you who made the barbarians the power they are today. Kill talent, stupid warrior. As the two quarreled, the courtroom turned into a pot of porridge, and ministers criticized each other. Don't say it. Xiao Wangsun said angrily, as before, every time the barbarians are mentioned, the ministers will always be divided into two factions, the main battle and the main. After he ascended the throne, the barbarians became more and more powerful. At that time, when his ascension was not stable, The barbarians took advantage of the situation and even conquered Yaozhou and other places, losing the important pass of Shanhaiguan. He had to negotiate with the barbarians to appease, in exchange for ceding the cities of Yaozhou and other places in exchange for time to stabilize the throne. At the same time, the city of Kangzhou was rebuilt to resist further barbarian invasions, because he understood that even if these cities were not ceded to barbarians, they would not be able to keep them, and he would also face the risk of losing Kingzhou and even the area north of the Yangtze River. In addition, King Wei tried hard to persuade him at that time, and he was afraid of the barbarians in his heart, and finally agreed to pay tribute to the barbarians every year. In the advice of the Lord Hepei originally, they were in peace with each other, but the barbarians were not greedy enough. Even if they took the annual tribute, they continued to harass them and asked for more. This annual tribute gradually became a heavy burden on the Great Yu Kingdom, but when the throne was stable, he turned around again. The barbarians holding the Sui Gong became stronger and stronger, while the Great Yu Kingdom became weaker and weaker, and the voice of the Lord and faction of the DPRK gained the upper hand. He understands the fears in the hearts of these ministers, and it is also his fear, because spending some money is better than losing glory and wealth. But now that the barbarians have invaded again, he has no way to retreat, and can only stop the war with the war. The ministers were shouted by Xiao Wangsun, and all stopped at this time. Xiao Wangsun said, "The memorial of King Qi makes it very clear that this time the barbarians colluded with the Kingzhou nobles to attack Kangzhou. It can be seen that the barbarians have been planning for a long time. This land in the south of the Yangtze River, the rich and prosperous hometown, is the source of food and money for the Great Yu country. If it is lost, the Great Yu country will be in danger. Your Majesty is wise. This rich and prosperous land in the south of the Yangtze River cannot be lost." A minister shouted, "Your Majesty is wise." Luo Quan said with his fists folded. At this time, the second prince said, "Father, you need to be careful about this matter. The barbarians have always liked to attack the east and the west. Maybe this attack on Kangzhou was just a false shot. The real purpose may not be Kangzhou. We should let the King of Qi guard Kangzhou first. While we wait for it to change, let King Qi guard Kangzhou." Did the second brother forget that King Qi fled back to Chang'an 3 years ago? At this moment, the fourth prince suddenly spoke sarcastically. As soon as these words were said, all the ministers in the hall showed ridicule. "So the fourth brother is willing to guard Kangzhou?" The prince glanced at the fourth prince and said lightly. The fourth prince's face turned pale. "I didn't say that. After all, this Kangzhou is the fief of King Qi, and it is not convenient for outsiders to intervene." "Thank you for your reward, recommendation and support. The snail can only say thank you more tomorrow." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129. The dazzling sunlight extends above the courtroom, and the fine dust can be seen floating in the air in the bright place. The Minister of Civil and Military Affairs and the prince's argument made Xiao Wangsun agitated. For a while he knew as well as everyone else that the Great Yu Kingdom was no longer an opponent of the barbarians. When King Zhao entered the capital a few days ago, there was no fear of the barbarians in his speech. Although King Zhao's intention was also to give money to Xiao Wangsun, the lineage of King Zhao, who used to be known as one of the Iron Curtains in the northern part of the Great Yu Kingdom, has shown a state of powerlessness, and King Liang and King Yang were even more tired of dealing with barbarian harassment. Over the years, the money from the treasury and the equipment of the equipment department were basically given to the three kings in the north. In addition to the annual tribute, the Great Yu Kingdom's treasury is empty, and now it is unable to support Xiaoming anymore. It is precisely because of this that this forbidden army cannot be easily used, because this is the last garrison of Chang'an City. So the second prince's words came to his heart. The fourth prince's words made him a little unhappy, and the prince's rebuke to the fourth prince was exactly what he wanted to say. "Okay, stop arguing, I've made up my mind. This time I can't add any more tribute. Now that the Dayu state treasury is beyond its means, how can the money be with the barbarians? And the blind concession will only make the barbarians despise me, Dayu. This time, I don't want to defeat the barbarians, just let them understand that our country, Dayu, can't be left to the barbarians. Your Majesty is wise." Luo Quan and other generals said in unison at this time. Many civil servants looked as if they were mourning examinations. Their faces were pale, and they were afraid in their hearts, afraid that the barbarians would come to Chang'an. At that time, they would no longer be able to enjoy the glory, wealth, and gentleness of their daughters, your majesty, you can't fight. Kui Hao suddenly knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. Then half of the ministers knelt down among the civil servants, and they all shouted, your majesty, you can't fight. Together with this dispute, there will be no peace in the country of Dayou, and the country will be destroyed in one fell swoop. Your majesty, you can't fight. At this time, many of the military officers knelt down. Xiao Wangsun suddenly felt a surge of anger in his heart. In the past, this was only the case with civil servants, but this time, there are so many generals and the military officers who dare not fight because of the threat of the barbarians. He suddenly felt a sense of sadness, when the whole country of Dayou was already full of people who were greedy for life and fear of death, and would only steal their lives. Father, the sons and ministers have a plan, which can prevent the barbarians from going south without letting the barbarians turn their anger on the court. The third prince said suddenly. At this time Xiao Wangsun's eyes lit up and he asked, come on father, it is inconvenient to say this plan in the court. The third prince hesitated and said. Xiao Wangsun waved his hand and said to the ministers, retire the dynasty, we will discuss this matter tomorrow. Yes, your majesty. The ministers got up and left Changqing Hall in order. After all the ministers left, only the three princes remained in the hall. At this time Xiao Wangsun said, what can you do? Actually it's very simple. This time the barbarians went south just to Suiguang, to attack Kangzhou and threaten the hinterland of the Central Plains as a threat. Kangzhou is the fief of the king of Qi, and further south is the fief of the king of Wei. For the safety of their respective fiefs, Qi the king and the king of Wei will fully resist the attack of the barbarians, so if the king of Qi and the king of Wei can defend Kangzhou, the barbarians will naturally go back in despair. If King Qi and King Wei can't defend Kangzhou, it's not too late to make peace with the barbarians before the city is broken. After all, if King Qi and King Wei can't stop the barbarians, the imperial army and the armies of other vassals will rush to help. I'm afraid it won't help, and the great Yu kingdom is in danger at this time. And at this time it is clearly stated that the king of Qi and the king of Wei disobeyed the emperor's orders, and used military force to punish the crime without authorization, in order to appease the barbarians, in exchange for the peace of the great Yu kingdom. The third prince said slowly. After saying this, the third prince was a little proud. In his opinion, this is the most sensible approach at present. You bastard, how can I have such a vicious son as you? Xiao Wangsun suddenly burst out, picked up the memorial in his hand and smashed it at the third prince. You are asking me to betray my siblings, my own son, and the whole world, although I, Xiao Wangsun, can't compare to the great ancestor, Sheng Ming. I can't do such a despicable and shameless thing. The third prince was calm as usual, and seemed to have long thought that Xiao Wangsun would have such a reaction. He said, Father, can you still see clearly in the court hall today? Behind this lord and ministers are the kings of Zhao, Liang and Yuan, who are afraid of the barbarians. The northern vassal state and the great Yu state will have different dreams in the same bed. Xiao Wangsun's complexion changed. Over the years, the imperial family of the great Yu kingdom and many vassal states have drifted farther and farther away, and the intimacy between the vassal state and the imperial family was no longer the same. Especially the feudal kings with different surnames, which have been passed down for several generations, have become increasingly alienated from the royal family, and are faintly obedient to the royal orders. It is precisely because of this that since Gaozu, the emperors of the great Yu kingdom have basically maintained their relationship with each other through marriages with many vassal states. The words of the third prince are not impossible. Everyone in the great Yu kingdom knew that he and King Zhao were like brothers. But in fact, the more they were, the greater the drama between the two. This King Zhao is the northern barrier of the royal family. If he secretly colludes with the barbarians can directly take Chang'an city. It is precisely because of this that he is very afraid of King Zhao. Empress Zhao was made queen and his nephew was made crown prince, all to appease the king of Zhao. After all, among many vassal states, King Zhao's army is the most powerful. If you use it well, it is a chess piece that can be used for a great deal. If you use it badly, it is a deadly blade. This is the case with King Liang and King Yuan. In order to guard against the barbarians, the treasury has given the three vassal kings a lot of money. If this time, thinking of this, Xiao Wangsun no longer dared to imagine that the ambition in the courtroom slowly cooled down. He is now in his 50s, and he has long since lost the enthusiasm of the year. When he calmed down, he suddenly felt a little scared. The third prince saw Xiao Wangsun's expression in his eyes. He sneered in his heart. He knew his father too well. He loves the throne more than anything. Father, the barbarians have repeatedly harassed them, and this time it's impossible not to retaliate. But if we really start a full-scale war with the barbarians, the Great Yu Kingdom is likely to face the risk of falling apart. The minister only proposed this plan. All of this is for the sake of the Great Yu Kingdom, for the sake of the father and the emperor, and besides, it was just a false punishment to the barbarians at that time. The third prince said again. Xiao Wangxun was powerless for a while. He waved his hand. Rong Zhen, think about it carefully. You go out first. The third prince answered yes, bowed and left outside the imperial city. Li Zhang was waiting for the third prince Xiao Zhen. When he saw the third prince coming out of the palace, Li Zhang stepped forward and asked, "How is it, Your Highness?" Chapter 130. Big Fish Eat Small Fish. I've said everything that needs to be said. With my father's character, I will definitely adopt my plan. The third prince shook the paper fan with a confident look. Hearing this, Li Zhang showed a strange smile. Your Highness, this time killing two birds with one stone. The most important thing is King Wei. This time the barbarians go south to King Wei and King Qi will definitely be unstoppable, and if Qi loses Wei, with the greed of the barbarians, it will inevitably continue to seize the remaining land in the north of the Yangtze River, cannot be defended. So, if you can take the opportunity to weaken the King of Wei, this rich land south of the Yangtze River is not your uncle King of Chu? Then you just need to wait for the opportunity. If the barbarians come to the city, the emperor has only two ways. One is to destroy the city of Chang'an together. Now, one is to flee to Linen and establish another capital. At that time, you will not have to rely on your uncle. Will the throne still be able to escape? If the emperor suffered misfortune at that time, His Highness can also ascend the throne with the support of your uncle. Emperor uncle has already told me these words in the letter. I didn't expect my uncle to have such a long-term vision. I just hope that the barbarians will not go back this time because of the autumn wind. The third prince sneered. Li Zhang said with a smile, of course not. I got the news that the barbarians have already stopped their troops with the Ottomans. This time they go south, they will definitely not retreat easily. The number of lives in the north is exhausted, and the barbarians are not good at water warfare. And typing, Your Highness, don't hesitate any longer, you should make plans earlier. The third prince suddenly sighed slightly. Forget it, when this king takes the throne in Linen, he will do his best to recover the lost territory in the north. Your Highness is wise. Li Zhang smiled. The next day, in the morning after thinking about it all night, Xiao Wangxun looked at the Minister of Civil and Military Affairs and said, the matter of the barbarians going south needs to be discussed in the long run. After all, now that the Great Yu Kingdom and the barbarians have been rehabilitated, it is not appropriate to speculate. King Qi, the vassal state of King Wei, should guard the monarchy. If the barbarians go south, they should try their best to guard them and let the barbarians know the greatness of our country. If the two vassals can't resist, we will make another peace deal and increase the annual tribute to appease the barbarians, and other vassals also need to take precautions. If the barbarians do not know anyway, let's fight to the death. Emperor Shengming, Quihao and other ministers were overjoyed and said one after another. Luo Quan clenched his fist and was about to play again, but was pulled by the military general on the same side and shook his head. Judging from Xiao Wangxun's expression, it was a compromise this time. The prince and other princes did not speak. They were also making their own ideas. King Zhao also wanted him to stand on the side of the lord and the faction. Although he did not speak, many of these lord and ministers were his people. From the point of view of King Zhao, Xiao Wangxun is very old now, and in a few years, he, the prince, will be able to take the throne. So at this time, no matter what, the barbarians must be stabilized. And the country in the north cannot be lost, and everything will be set after he has secured the throne. Behind the fourth prince is King Lang, and he also has the same idea. Once the barbarians attack, it will harm the interests of the kings in the north, while the kings in the south who are shrinking can take the opportunity to grow. Therefore, the vassal kings in the north are not stupid. If the barbarians really go south, they will focus on peace, and take resistance as a supplement. It's just that King Qi's letter clearly stated that the fiefs lack iron and coal briquettes. When I see this, I will stop making things difficult for King Qi. We can allow King Qi to buy and sell coal, iron and other things in the Great Yu Kingdom. Xiao Wangxun said a little dejectedly. This is the only place he can help Xiaoming. The ministers no longer have any objections. If the barbarians really go south this time, they only need to watch the fire from the other side, and let King Qi and King Wei resist, and then make peace when they really can't resist. In this way, the barbarians can know that the bones of the Great Yu Kingdom are not so easy to gnaw. At that time, They will increase the annual tribute and cede the cities of the king of Qi and the king of Wei in exchange for the peace of the barbarians and the great Yu kingdom, and if the barbarians do not make peace, then the Forbidden Army will be dispatched to fight the barbarians to the death. After talking about this decision, Xiao Wangsun seemed very tired and asked Xiao Huangman to announce his retreat. 3 days later, King Zhao, a bunch of cowards. Xiao Ming slammed the imperial decree from Chang'an City to the ground in Prince Qi's mansion. Pang Yukin was shocked and picked it up immediately. Your Highness, if Xiao Huangman sees this, it's time to tell your Majesty that it's not yours. What are you afraid of? The barbarians are heading south, and the great Yu kingdom is in danger, but what about them? All of them are thinking of their own interests. It's ridiculous, ridiculous, and ridiculous. Xiao Ming said angrily. This time with the imperial decree, there was also a secret letter from concubine Zhen to him, and he knew everything about what happened in the courtroom. At least General Luo is still a man. Lu Fei said General Luo is righteous, but unfortunately he can't stop the traitorous officials and thieves above the court. Xiao Ming said. Zun Xingchang pondered for a while and said, Your Highness, this time His Majesty's imperial decree asks us to guard Kang Zhao alone, and the King of Wei agrees. This strategy is probably the poisonous strategy that the third prince came up with. The mother-in-law said that the father and the emperor lost his temper in the harem that day. It can be seen that this is true. It is estimated that my third brother is already thinking about the fall of the north and his dream of ascending the throne in Lin. Exactly, this move is mainly to make King Wei lose his troops and lose his generals. We are only harming Qiu. Zan Xingchang said, from the perspective of other ministers and princes, it is clear that King Zhao, King Liang, and King Yuang do not want to be involved in this time. When the barbarians attack Kang Zhao, for them, as long as their vassal state is safe and sound, it is enough. Pang Yukan nodded. Xingchang is right. It seems that the fate of King Kang fell to us again. Xiao Ming nodded. When the barbarians attacked Shanhaiguan, the court in Chang'an was the same as it is today, sacrificing a vassal state in exchange for 10 years of peace, but unfortunately, King Kang's generation, King Ming, would rather die than surrender and commit suicide in the palace of King Kang. This king will never allow King Kang's tragedy to repeat itself in King Zhao. There is at least one piece of good news. The emperor agreed to buy iron and briquettes from other states. Xiao Ming said he never thought to count on other people to help him, and the complete defeat of Xiao Wangsun and many vassal kings in the court this time proved this. Zan Xingchang said, Your Highness, this is the opportunity to ask King Wei for money, grain, iron and coal, otherwise this city of Kangzhou will be difficult to defend. Ha ha ha, you're so right. Xiao Ming suddenly laughed. This Zan Xingchang was really bad at this time. King Wei must have been furious, and he probably would not have thought that he, who had always been smooth sailing, would be sold by other vassal kings as the first hurdle to resist the barbarians. King Wei definitely hoped that Xiao Ming would be able to defend Kangzhou, so it would not be too much for him to extend his hand to support him. Pang Yukin smiled bitterly and said, His Royal Highness, all the civil and military people of the dynasty are plotting against you. How can you still laugh? Even if you want money and food to resist the attack of the barbarians, I'm afraid we will suffer heavy losses. Chapter 131, The King of Wei comes again. Pang Changshi doesn't have to frown. This king is smiling bitterly. Now it is obvious that the father and emperor will not send a soldier to Kangzhou. There is no other way but to rely on himself, and now he can only do his best and obey the destiny. In this case, why not sink the boat and sink the boat? This time, this king will not only ask for money and food from King Wei, but also ask for money and food from his father, and those who want to see this king's jokes will also have to pay for the play. Xiao Ming, who was laughing, suddenly stopped and said sternly. Lu Fei scolded, His Royal Highness is right, these bastards want to take a profit. No way. Hey. Pang Yukin sighed deeply. He felt sorry for the great Yu kingdom. This time, the thoughts of different vassal kings can already be seen. Even Xiao Wangsun can't issue decrees completely according to his own wishes. Lu Fei ignored Pang Yukin. The literati was too long-winded. He asked, So, is your highness going to Jinling City to find King Wei? Why do you need to look for it? Your highness, King Wei will come to you. Xiao Ming laughed. Jinling City, the palace of the King of Wei. Just as Xiao Ming guessed, King Wei was furious after receiving the imperial decree, and the servants of the palace were silent. Third brother, why did you make such a big fire? Princess Pingyang still stayed in Jinling City. Just now, she was alarmed by King Wei's scolding. She came to see why? Only then did King Wei get news from Chang'an and asked him and King Qi to defend Kangzhou. King Wei's face turned red. HMPH, this time, It seems that the court is being manipulated by other vassal kings. They want to weaken the strength of this king on purpose, so that this king and the barbarians will face each other, and the emperor is also. Why are they biased? I believe the three princes tricks. These three princes are worthy of the nickname Viper Third. This strategy is really vicious, but this is also the weakness of the emperor. I know this emperor best. He cares about his throne the most. Besides, he is at his age, but I want to live a few more years in peace and have a birthday. Princess Pingayang said. The king of Wei said angrily, he has a birthday, but what about me? If King Zhao falls and the barbarians cross King Zhao, where will this king still have a place to live? The emperor is really deceived by this group of people. This plan will hurt two people. A royal vassal. This is further weakening the royal family. Princess Pingayang frowned, and King Wei came to the point. If King Qi and King Wei were destroyed again, only King Yang would be left in this royal family. It is estimated that the emperor is also helpless. You can see that the ministers who are in charge of peace this time are almost all from King Zhao, King Liang, and King Yuan. If the emperor insists on his own way, he is afraid of barbarian invasion. Not only do these vassal kings not help the royal family, they will also helping Zhou to commit crimes, and the barbarian invasion of King Zhao was originally the matter of King Qi. After all, when the barbarians invaded the fiefs of King Zhao and others, they were also responsible for it alone. Princess Pingayang said. The king of Wei slowly exhaled, and Princess Pingayang's words made him feel at a loss for words. When the barbarians attacked the king of Zhao, he seemed to be watching the fire from the other side, but at that time Zhao Wangsun gave money, food and equipment well. Now it seems that this king is unavoidable. This time the barbarians are heading south. If King Qi can't defend King Zhao, this king may not be able to defend his fifth. Princess Pingayang smiled and said, actually, Brother Wang doesn't have to worry. If King Qi can defend King Zhao, the great Yu kingdom will be safe. Can he defend King Zhao? King Wei sneered. These days, King Qi has done some amazing things, but it's a bit of a joke. Brother Wang, having said that, but if you want to reduce Wei Di's losses, you have to put aside your prejudice at this time, help King Qi, and let King Qi kill more enemies for the emperor. Some trouble. King Wei nodded. That's not bad. I can't tell. This time this king will go to King Zhao again to discuss this matter with King Qi. Well, if this is the case, I will let the people in the court stop attacking Zhao Ming about the wealthy family. Princess Pingayang said, I really don't know if this King Qi is unlucky or lucky. A few days later, a huge fleet set off from Jinling City and slowly set off towards King Zhao. 3 days later, the fleet arrived at the wharf outside King Zhao City. At this time on the dock, Zhao Ming was waiting on a horse. Just as he thought, King Wei couldn't wait to come to him. Nephew, King Wei got off the boat and went straight to Zhao Ming. When he got close, he hugged Zhao Ming fiercely. Zhao Ming coughed and said, Uncle Sanhuang, you are going to strangle me to death. King Wei laughed and patted Zhao Ming on the shoulder. My nephew is getting thinner and thinner. This time, the uncle has brought you a lot of good things, so you can make up for it. With that said, he looked back at the boxes that were constantly being removed from the boat. Zhao Ming cupped his hands. If that's the case, then thank you, uncle, thank you. This time the king is here, you must be clear. You can't say that you have to rely on you this time. King Wei said. Zhao Ming said with a smile, so, Uncle Wang also got the news. This wine bag and rice bag in Shenzhen was so frightening that he couldn't lift his pants when he saw the barbarians. This time, you and I were supposed to resist the barbarians. It really killed 1,000 knives. The king of Wei was equally angry. No, if I was in the court at that time, I would definitely have drawn a sword and cut down those rats. The two walked while talking. It was noon. Zhao Ming said, Uncle Sanhuang, I have already set up a banquet by the Lotus Pond outside the city. Why don't we go to that place? King Wei was stunned, but he knew about Zhao Ming's execution of the local noble family by the Lotus Pond. Zhao Ming arranged this to remind him that he was not so easy to mess with. After laughing awkwardly twice, King Wei pretended not to know, and said, Go, it's good to be outside, it's good to be outside, enjoying the scenery and eating at the same time. Wonderful. The two came to the Lotus Pond surrounded by guards. At this time, a banquet had been set here, and the servants were busy. Zhao Ming invited King Wei to sit down with him, and then he said, I hope Uncle Sanhuang doesn't mind. The King of Wei looked at the many dishes he had never seen before, and he didn't know the names, and said, My nephew, you're very polite. This time, I'm not here for delicious food, but to discuss how to deal with the barbarians going south. Zhao Ming pretended not to know. Isn't the father and the emperor very clear? You and I are guarding King Zhao together. And the uncle is older than me, and the fief is much richer than my King Zhao. The main force guarding King Zhao is naturally the emperor. Uncle King Wei's expression tightened. He understood that no matter how stupid Xiao Ming was, he wouldn't be so easily deceived on this issue. He said, "That's true, but Uncle Wang is only afraid that the battlefield will change unpredictably, and Uncle's army traveled a long distance and could not arrive in time. If he lost King Zhao at that time, wouldn't he have hurt his nephew?" Chapter 132 Fair Trade. By the Lotus Pond, the blood that once covered the ground has now been washed away by a heavy rain. The beautiful scenery makes it impossible to see that there was a brutal fight here not long ago. Wei Wang looked at Xiao Ming with a smile, just waiting for Xiao Ming's answer. Uncle Sanhurong, King Zhao can't be defended. Can the fief of Uncle Sanhurong be able to hold? Could it be that Uncle Sanhurong still counts on King Yan and King Chu to save him? Xiao Ming said lightly. Now he doesn't need to worry about King Wei's face. This court meeting made him see clearly that the traitorous officials of the Great Yu Kingdom are in power. Many vassal kings have malicious intentions, and his father Wang Kong has great ambitions, but he is reluctant to lose himself. Everyday luxury. There was no one to help him. He had to get through it on his own. King Wei looked embarrassed. "Nephew, it's not like you don't know the relationship between me, King Yan, and King Chu. If they don't take the opportunity to fall into the trap, I will burn high incense. This time, I think about it, it's just you and me. Only by working together can we overcome difficulties together, don't you think?" Xiao Ming thought to himself that this is still like a human word. When he said the words of King Wei, he completely wanted to use him as a spearman in order to prevent the barbarians from going south. Xiao Ming has been very busy these days. He said, "Uncle Sanhurong, since you have come to King Zhao, you must also need me." Xiao Ming. The second three emperors came here simply because I wanted my King Zhao army to be the main force in guarding King Zhao, and if the third emperor could not use the army, he would not use the army to preserve his strength. After all, the third emperor also had to guard against the two kings with different surnames, the King of Chu and the King of Yan. Is it right? King Wei was stunned. He didn't expect Xiao Ming to be so direct. He smiled bitterly and put away his hippie smile. It seemed that his nephew really couldn't look at it the way he used to. "Since my nephew said so, I will not hide it. This time, my nephew must have seen the plans of those kings with different surnames, especially this King of Chu, who is just waiting for the barbarians to sweep the north to get rid of other vassal kings for him, and Zhao King and others obviously do not want to provoke the barbarians, so there is a seemingly contradictory decision in the court, but behind this is actually just a game behind the vassal kings." Wei Wang slowly said after a pause. King Wei continued, "The emperor is probably forced to helpless this time. In order to resist the barbarians over the years, our royal family has provided money and grain, but these money and grain have fattened King Zhao, King Liang, the generation of King Yuan. The southern vassal kings with different surnames are sitting on their hands and growing, but the royal family is gradually weakening in this consumption. If the barbarians go south this time, you and I will be destroyed. At that time, the royal family and the vassal kings with different surnames, the strength will change, and I am afraid that there will be no scruples, and it is only a matter of time before the world changes hands." Xiao Ming nodded, and everything King Wei said came to the point. Obviously, this incident was a scheming of a vassal king with a different surname. In order to further weaken the royal family and pave the way to seize the throne after a generation of feudal kings with different surnames in the Gaozu era went west on a crane, there was no longer any affection between the royal family and feudal lords with different surnames. The ever-expanding ambition will inevitably bring about turbulence again and again in this barbaric era. Uncle Three Emperors sees it thoroughly, but it is obvious that the father has no other way, and now he can only rely on us. If we hold on, we can naturally defeat their conspiracy." Xiao Ming said. King Wei said so much, but in fact it was just for Xiao Ming to transfer his hatred to other vassal kings and take the opportunity to bring the two closer together. He said, "So, it's not that Uncle Wang is unwilling to help you with all his strength, Uncle Wang is also trying to prevent accidents." Xiao Ming sneered in his heart. If he was Xiao Ming before, he might really consider some kind of royal family, but unfortunately, he has nothing to do with King Wei, or even Xiao Wangsun in the city of Chang'an. Apart from concubine Zhen, he doesn't care about any life or death. After all, this woman is also the mother of his predecessor, and now she is thinking about him like a mother. Speaking of defending King Zhao this time, he was really unhappy with King Wei's people coming, And it wasn't that King Wei couldn't do the stabbing in the back. He said, "Hey, I thought it was too simple." It turns out that the uncle of the three emperors thought so deeply. "Well, in this case, this time, my nephew will bring the King's Hao army to defend the city." Uncle came to the rescue in time. King Wei was overjoyed in his heart, but his expression was as usual. He looked moved and held Xiao Ming's hand tightly. "My nephew, if we defeat the barbarians in the future, I will be my nephew and ask the emperor for credit." Xiao Ming pretended to smile, and then changed the conversation. "Thank you to the third uncle, but the nephew of Kang's Hao City can guard it." But the uncle must know the details of his nephew's arrival, and Chang'an helped. King Wei shook his hands in fright. He was blackmailed by Xiao Ming last time, and this time Xiao Ming was about to open his mouth again. However, he wanted Xiao Ming to resist the barbarians for him this time, but he couldn't refuse. He reluctantly said, "I have some iron and coal that my nephew needs. If my nephew needs it, I will send it to King Zhao. Then I would like to thank the third uncle. If the iron and coal are enough, the city of Kangzhou can still be defended. Otherwise, although my nephew wants to defend the emperor, I am afraid that he is unable to do so." Xiao Ming sighed. The corner of King Wei's mouth trembled. He originally wanted to give something away, but when Xiao Ming said this, he didn't dare. "This iron and coal are at best a matter of silver. He, the king of Wei, is the richest in the world. No one knows or cares, but if the barbarians enter the Wei land, he will really suffer heavy losses." He gritted his teeth and said, "Nephew, don't worry. Even if Uncle Sanhuang buys it, he will definitely provide iron and coal for nephew." "Thank you again, Uncle Three Emperors. Come, eat vegetables and drink." At this time, the banquet was ready. Xiao Ming stretched out his hand and invited King Wei to drink together. Holding the wine glass, Xiao Ming glanced at King Wei, and found that King Wei was also looking at him. The two smiled at each other. One was the old fox and the other was the little fox. At this banquet, Xiao Ming asked the dining room of the palace to prepare a lot of delicious food. He taught. King Wei, who had always liked to eat, was full of saliva and was full of praise. After a feast, King Wei was naturally very satisfied. It was noon when King Wei arrived in Kingzhou, and he would definitely not be able to go back today. Xiao Ming asked Ziwen to arrange accommodation for King Wei in the palace. This time was different from what happened last time. King Wei tasted this delicious food, but he wanted to stay in Kingzhou City for a few more days, and he did not reject Xiao Ming's arrangement with King Wei's promise. The shortage of ore in Kingzhou's army can be alleviated temporarily, but for Xiao Ming, this is far from enough, because in this era, even in the fiefs of King Wei, the output of coal and iron was very low, and the annual output of iron and coal in the entire Great Yu Kingdom might not be enough for Kingzhou to consume this time. After all, in modern times, the annual output of a steel mill is enough to explode the annual output of the world in this era. Chapter 133 Intrigue. Your Highness, it should be King Yuang. Below the banquet was over, and King Wei went down to the palace surrounded by his personal guards. At this time, Zhan Xingcheng suddenly said to Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming nodded. This time he made himself a fool to defend Kingzhou. He would definitely not do it without enough benefits from south to north, from east to west. He had to blackmail him all over again. Even if he didn't come, the letter would have to go there. At this time, asking him to buy coal and iron with money would be a traitor. He could use this one to complain in front of Xiao Wangsun. Yes, King Yuang, King Zhao, King Yan, etc. Don't let any of these people go. Write all of them, and whoever doesn't give it, we'll send a book to Chang'an. Xiao Ming said his memorial said that he would buy it with silver, but only if other vassal states sent troops to support him. Now he is alone, and he doesn't give him some money for his life. Who would be willing to take advantage of this? Zhan Xingcheng laughed wickedly for a while and said, Your Highness, leave this matter to me. I'm not afraid that these vassal kings will not spit out something. He still had confidence in Zhan Xingcheng, the ill-fated counselor Xiao Ming, and he said, Go, if it is really done, this king will reward him heavily. In response, Zhan Xingcheng, Pang Yukan and others went to the governor's mansion. Xiao Ming then went to Kingzhou City. This time, when King Wei came, he would definitely inquire about Kingzhou City, and he had to let Li San defend himself, especially the model guns that the equipment division is making. Before playing Chang'an, he had already brought Chen Qi to study the problem of the gun model day and night. Judging from the current situation, he must not be able to build copper cannons, and even if he collects the copper in the entire fief, he can't build a few cannons. Bronze cannons are not enough. 1 copper, 1 lead, and Kingzhou have no reserves. After much deliberation, He can only produce cast iron cannons, although the toughness of cast iron guns is not as good as that of bronze guns, and bronze guns, it is easier to explode suddenly, but if you want to produce more cannons in such a short period of time, you can only do this, after all, through blast furnace iron making and crucible steel making. King's How's iron and steel production has greatly increased. Moreover, the cast iron guns in the technology library have ready-made knowledge reserves. He does not need to go through the early development of cannons, but directly uses the mature casting technology to produce cast iron guns. But even so, some technical difficulties still cannot be overcome, and the success rate of cast iron guns is estimated to be only 3 or 4 out of 10. That is to say, if 10 guns are produced, only 3 or 4 usable guns can be successfully obtained, because many of the barrels of cast iron guns will burst due to thermal expansion and contraction during the cooling process. The internal mold water cooling technology that guarantees the gun barrel technology is definitely impossible to achieve at the current level of King's How. At least it can only be considered after the appearance of the steam engine, just as Xiao Ming thought. When King Wei arrived in King's How City, he would naturally not be honest. King Wei's men were all over King's How asking about interesting stories these days in King's How. Of course, these people get the most from the wealthy family. Followed by newspapers, glass, and other new things. Newspaper? Interesting, there are many newspapers in Prince Qi's mansion, and Prince Wei easily asked Xiao Ming for a copy. Xiao Ming is now closely accompanying King Wei, trying his best to let this restless uncle settle down instead of letting him ask around. It's better to show him what he can see. Uncle Three Emperors can try it on the fief if he likes it. Xiao Ming said. He is now digging a hole for King Wei to jump in. He was able to achieve the distribution of the newspaper. It was because of type printing and mature paper technology. That's fine, but it's the same as the notice at the city gate. King Wei wasn't stupid either. The handwriting on this newspaper was exactly the same. Obviously, it was not copied by the scholars one by one. This Xiao Ming obviously has a special way, but he is not interested in this thing. For him, it is meaningless to let the people know so much. Looking at the newspaper, King Wei picked up the glass at hand and looked at it again. Nephew, this time the barbarians are heading south. I'm afraid it will have a big impact on your business. King's How is facing war. Generally speaking, merchants will seek good luck and avoid harm. Especially these merchants are mostly people in front of the kings. It's just that now the business in King's How is not only showing no signs of withering, but it seems to be hotter than before. These businessmen, who were worried about the war, thought that if King's How fell, these commodities in King's How would inevitably become unparalleled, but instead, the prices of various commodities soared. Indeed, it's not small. My King's How Chamber of Commerce has made a lot of money these days. There are also a lot of food, copper, iron, cloth and other items that offset the silver. It is because of this that my nephew dares to keep a guard this King's How City. Wei Wang was angry for a while, and he didn't know what evil this kid was in. Now he is very lucky. On the contrary, it was himself who had both successes in the past few years, but now he is unlucky everywhere. This glass is really good. I want to buy some when I go back this time. How many nephews are there? King Wei took the opportunity to change the subject. Once the glass thing was put into production, it formed a scale. The craftsmen were skilled and the production was very fast. Now King's How has accumulated a lot of inventory, he said. How much does Uncle San Hurong want? King Wei nodded. He couldn't put it down. This time, he planned to use a lot of glass to decorate the palace, but he also heard that the price of this glass is not low, and a glass bottle costs at least 20 or 30 taels of silver. In fact, the reason why Xiao Ming accompanies King Wei has another purpose, that is, to make King Wei quickly send someone back to the fief to send coal, carbon and other things. Having seen King's How's new stuff, King Wei was also a little satisfied, but he also understood that the real secret of King's How was in the equipment department, and no one had entered this place so far. Well, I'll have people prepare silver to exchange for some glass, and by the way, let them raise iron and coal to send to King's How City. Wei Wang said slowly. A guard was summoned. King Wei said a few words to him, and the guard turned and left. Then the King of Wei said to Xiao Ming, my dear nephew, if the barbarians attack the city of King's How, it will be a pity that you are a prosperous place in King's How. I am afraid that soap, glass, and fine wine will also become unparalleled. It will also be destroyed, and at that time, no matter how much you have, there will be nowhere to sell it. What Uncle San Hurong said is very true. Xiao Ming said lazily. This is also the fundamental reason why he wants to stick to King's How. The current day kingdom can't be in chaos. If it is in chaos, where will his goods be sold, and how can he build his own fief without money, at least this time? He and King Wei have the same purpose, that is, for their own purposes, to temporarily maintain the balance of the Great Yu Kingdom. The two were talking when suddenly Aster shouted, "Your Highness," from outside the door. "What's wrong?" Xiao Ming asked. A man calling himself Luo Xin outside the door asked to see His Highness. He said that he was the son of General Luo Quan PFFT. Wei Wang, who was drinking water, spit out all the tea in his mouth. P.S. It will be on the shelves at 12 noon tomorrow, and the day of the second watch will officially end. After the launch, the snail will basically keep the fourth watch, and it will be updated from time to time. I hope everyone will support it and make the snail full of motivation. Tomorrow's chapter will be updated twice, once at noon and once at 8 p.m. At least 10,000 characters will be updated. Chapter 134 Testimonials on the Shelves. The fifth book is about to hit the shelves, and it has been almost 3 years since I stumbled into the web. Snail is not a gifted author, and his grades have been mediocre in the past 2 years. From the 4 different types of works, it can be seen that Snail has been trying to find a writing path that suits him. It's an attempt to smash the street, but the Snail still wrote it, in order to write a truly popular work because of the inextinguishable passion and dream for online texts in his heart. If there are too many words, I will not say more about the snails. It is on the shelves. I just hope that everyone can support the snails like my dreams are with you at the same time. I'm sorry to my lovely Huai editor. Maybe some time ago, the editor changed a bit frequently. It belongs to the free-range state, and people have become lazy. I can only say thank you 1,000 words. Chapter 135 Luo Xin. Razin Xiao Ming was also slightly taken aback. This Luo Quan was the leader of the main war faction of the Great Yu Kingdom. Every time the barbarians invaded, General Luo Quan was always the first to fight. In fact, this general has also fought against the barbarians many times, winning half and half, and has a high prestige among the Forbidden Army. This Luo Xin is Luo Quan's second son. When they were in Chang'an, Xiao Ming and Luo Xin were also very familiar with each other, but this familiarity was not a relationship between friends, but a relationship that was not pleasing to the eye at that time. Luo Xin was very disgusted with Xiao Ming's mischief in Chang'an. Many times Xiao Ming's good thing about seizing the people's daughter was caused by this kid. King Wei calmed down for a moment, sighed and said, "General Luo is really the pillar of the country. This time, this Luo Xin will definitely be sent to help His Highness." General Luo has always advocated for the barbarians to end the war with the war, but unfortunately Chugao is a widow, and few people support it. This time, it must be extremely helpless. Xiao Ming said. Then he turned to Aster and said, "Quickly invite him in." Aster replied, "Yes." After a while, she came in with a handsome young man in a military uniform. This person was Luo Quan's son, Luo Xin. Luo Xin pays respects to His Royal Highness King Qi and His Royal Highness King Wei. Seeing that King Wei was also in the main hall, Luo Xin was surprised and bowed. Xiao Ming got up, helped Luo Xin up, and said, "Erlang is exempt from the ceremony. This king is really happy to see Erlang and King Zhao. Come, sit." Luo Xin bowed again, and then sat down next. King Wei smiled. "Erlang, why did you get to King Zhao? After all, what he said just now was a guess by the two of them, and Luo Xin really had to ask for the purpose of his visit." Luo Xin said, "The barbarians are going south, and there is a sound of peace in the court. My father really doesn't like it. He asked me to come to King Zhao to help His Highness. I just hope that this barbarians going south can be foiled as expected." General Luo Quan understands the righteousness, and this king really admires it. This time, this king will definitely try his best. If Erlang doesn't dislike it, he might as well join my army and fight against the barbarians. King Wei laughed. Luo Xin had a strange look on his face. This time, his father famously told him to come to King Zhao to help Xiao Ming, but he didn't say to let him help King Wei. This King Wei's words made him very embarrassed. Xiao Ming secretly scolded that King Wei was so shameless that it was hard to find in the world. Sure enough, it was not without reason that King Wei was so prosperous now. Just relying on the thickness of his face was enough. He squinted at King Wei. "Uncle Sanhurong, Erlang famously said that he came to help this king. Is it inappropriate for Uncle Sanhurong to want someone like this, or is Uncle Sanhurong trying to lead Weedy's army to defend the city for this king?" Cough. "This king is just talking, just talk about it." When King Wei heard this, he immediately fainted. As the saying goes, the generals are tigers. This Luo Xin also inherited the bravery of General Luo Quan, and he followed General Luo Quan to the battlefield and fought against the barbarians in person. It can be said that how to deal with the barbarians is also very good. Moreover, It is said that this Luo Xin is highly skilled in martial arts. And ordinary generals are not his opponents. It was precisely because of this that King Wei risked his face to win over Luo Xin. Luo Xin's eyes swept back and forth on Xiao Ming and King Wei. He was not only brave, but also very shrewd. He could see that today's King Wei and King Qi were only peaceful on the surface. This is exactly what his father said. King Wei would not sincerely resist the barbarians, and would definitely let Xiao Ming be the pawn now. Although the different surnamed vassal kings have different thoughts, this royal vassal king also has his own thoughts, and the two must be intrigued on this matter. That's why his father let him go directly to King Zhao, because in any case, this King Zhao is the fief of King Qi. He cannot escape this fate. Ignoring King Wei, Xiao Ming said to Luo Xin, Erlang, when the barbarians are heading south, King Zhao is lacking talents at this time. You are here in time. In Chang'an before, this king has offended many things. I hope Erlang will forgive me. Luo Xin's memory of Xiao Ming still remained in Chang'an City. If his father had not asked him to come this time, he would really not want to be a general under Xiao Ming, but he thought that when the barbarian thing was over, he could go back, and it would be okay to endure it for a while. He said, His Royal Highness, as long as the barbarians can be prevented from going south, there is no need to talk about the small things in the past. Xiao Ming nodded. That's very good. I'll let Colonel Lu come over now and take you to see the army. Luo Xin nodded. He didn't have much to say to Xiao Ming. Why don't he go directly to the army to see the training situation of the King Zhao army? King Wei's spirit was a little optimistic, and he was obviously a little unhappy that Luo Xin stayed in the King Zhao army. This time the barbarians went south, but this kid Xiao Ming really got a lot of benefits. Xiao Ming immediately sent someone to call Lu Fei over. I am afraid that Lu Fei would not be able to deal with it alone, although he is not familiar with this Luo Xin, but Luo Xin is also a well-known figure. It would be best if he can use it for him. Your Highness, look for me. After a while, Lu Fei appeared in the main hall. He was training with the King Zhao army in the army just now, and his plate armor had not yet taken off. Entering the main hall with a heavy plate armor, coupled with a tall and sturdy figure, Lu Fei looked extremely ferocious. When Luo Xin saw Lu Fei, he seemed to be interested, and his expression showed excitement. His eyes first swept across Lu Fei's plate armor, and then looked at Lu Fei. This is Colonel Lu who recaptured Kangzhou City 3 years ago? It's better to meet him if he is famous. When we meet him today, he is indeed a strong general. Luo Xin said. Lu Fei glanced at Luo Xin and saw that the uniform on his body was that of the Imperial Army, showing a confused look. Who are you? His name is Luo Xin, the second son of General Luo Quan. Xiao Ming explained. Lu Fei said in surprise, Jiu Yang, Jiu Yang. It turned out to be the famous Colonel Luo Xin. The two instantly sympathized with each other. Xiao Ming said, Xiao Luo came to King Zhao to help us stop the barbarians. I am afraid that I will work with you in the King Zhao army for a while in the future. You have to take good care of it. Hearing this, Lu Fei showed a happy expression, and he said, Your Highness, don't worry, Luo Xiao is a guest when he comes. And he will take care of him carefully. At the end, Xiao Lu, don't be polite. This time, I'm just assisting your Highness. The military affairs are still mainly about Captain Lu. You only need to speak when you need me. The three of them were so affectionate, and King Wei became more and more sour. He said, My nephew, I won't stay in Kingzhou City any longer. I will go back tomorrow, so as to urge you on this iron and coal matter. I only hope that my nephew can do everything in his power to defend Kingzhou City. Xiao Ming wanted him to leave. He didn't have time to take care of him now, so he said, Don't worry, Uncle Sanhurong, I will do my best. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Iron Mold Cannon. The next day, King Wei and the mighty fleet left the Kingzhou Wharf. Xiao Ming looked at King Wei's fleet with some envy. He didn't know when his Kingzhou City would have such a majestic fleet in the shipyard in Kingzhou. His Galen ship is still under intense construction, and he only hopes to get 3 Galen warships. As Zhang Liang said, by the end of the year. At that time, the artillery will be placed on the Galen ship. In this era of sailing warships, he has also taken a step into the sea. But thinking of artillery, his head suddenly became big again. The number of artillery required on the battlefield is also a lot, and it is a heavy burden. It seems that training a powerful navy really needs to keep smashing in it money. After sending King Wei, Xiao Ming went directly to the equipment department at this time. Chen Qi was leading a craftsman to cast iron molds, and the technology library in his mind was full of artillery casting methods. Naturally, Xiao Ming would not take the detours that his predecessors had taken. The method of casting guns he used this time was the method of casting guns with iron molds. This iron mold casting method actually existed in ancient times. However, it was adopted to cast artillery in the Qin dynasty. There is no technical difficulty in this method, only the current craftsman can't think of this method at all. All that is sometimes rare is not technology, but discovery technology. Now Xiao Ming has taught Chen Qi and others the complete iron mold casting technique. For these skilled craftsmen, it is only a matter of time before they can try it out. His Royal Highness, now we are making mud cannon embryos. Chen Qi saw Xiao Ming coming, and immediately walked over. The incident of casting the artillery made him unable to sleep well for days and nights, thinking day and night about the methods Xiao Ming taught him, and the artillery, the weapon Xiao Ming mentioned, made him inexplicably excited. As Xiao Ming said, if the artillery was built, Chen Qi would be famous enough to be remembered in history. But these days he led the craftsmen to try to forge the artillery, only to realize that the manufacture of the artillery is not so simple. And now only the cannon mold has failed several times. Looking at the failed mud cannon embryos, Xiao Ming said, "Failed again." Chen Qi's expression was a little tired, and his face was ashamed. His Royal Highness, at the beginning, the craftsmen were born by hand. Xiao Ming nodded and looked at the craftsman who was making the clay cannon embryo. This iron mold cast gun must first be divided into 4-7 sections according to the size of the iron gun to make a clay gun. And then according to the number of sections of the clay gun, the iron mold clay shape is made. Make the surface smooth and neat, then dry for later use. A prefabricated handle is placed in the clay mold, which is cast into one piece with the iron mold when pouring. Then, when using the clay mold to turn the cast iron mold, first invert a muzzle section on the clay flat plate, fill one of the petals with mud. After drying, cover the clay flat plate, tighten the mold, and pour the first part, a petal of an iron mold. Then remove the filing mud, and cast another piece of iron mold in the same way. In this way, by pouring section by section, a complete set of iron molds can be cast into layers of tenon joints. Finally, when casting iron cannons with iron molds, first paint the inner surface of the mold with a paint made of fine rice husk ash and fine sands, mud and water, and then paint a second layer of paint prepared with extremely fine coal powder, and then fasten the iron. The mold is heated, the mud core is assembled, and the molten iron is poured. After solidification, immediately take off the iron mold. While the gun body is still red hot, remove the burrs, remove the mud core, and get the finished gun. But this time, in order to reduce the blast rate of the gun, he plans to use a hollow ceramic core instead of a mud core, and inject water into the hollow ceramic core to cool the iron in the barrel. This is also a native method of barrel cooling technology, only to reduce the rate of blasting and produce high-quality iron guns. The matter of extorting other vassal kings was handed over to Sun Xingcheng, and now Xiao Ming has devoted himself to the equipment department, and Chen Qi is bound to produce this artillery. This time the barbarians went south, an army must be dispatched. And if they wanted to stop the barbarians from conquering Kangzhou, the only way to stop the barbarians from conquering Kangzhou was to make the barbarians retreat in a panic. After all, his artillery wasn't the torch of the great Yu kingdom, and the range of 3 to 4 miles was enough for the barbarians to drink a pot. As Chen Qi said, after the failure a few days ago, the craftsman has mastered some skills. However, the artillery has not been cast, and the artillery casting specification has been released. Xiao Ming divided the artillery into 6-pound, 9-pound, 12-pound, 18-pound, 24-pound, 32-pound and 42-pound guns. This time, the artillery that Xiao Ming cast was used to defend the city. Naturally, he had to use heavy artillery, so he used an 18-pounder. The 32-pounder and the 42-pounder were considered giant guns, so there was no need. An 8-pounder can be used as a naval gun, and the higher the pound, the bigger and heavier the gun body is, and handling itself is a problem in one day. According to the design standard of the 18-pound gun, the equipment department made half of the mud gun embryo, and the rest can only be continued tomorrow. The mud cannon embryos are still cast iron molds, and it will take at least 10 days before the cannons can be cast. It has been 10 days since the news of the barbarians going south, and it is estimated that the first cannon will be produced in a month. At this time, it is estimated that it is only about 5 months before the barbarians go south, and this is only his guess. If the barbarians went south ahead of schedule, he would be really struggling. Because of this, he didn't dare to take time off during this period of time, and he didn't dare to delay after finishing his work. When he returned to the palace at night, he was thinking about how to granulate the gunpowder. As we all know, the greater the power of gunpowder, the greater the power of this artillery today. The ratio of gunpowder in the Great Yu Kingdom is not very accurate in all aspects, but gunpowder is no longer a secret. The materials for the production of gunpowder are also very easy to obtain. After returning from the equipment department and having dinner, Xiao Ming called Lu Tong over. This gunpowder is a chemical matter, and naturally it must be handed over to Lu Tong. Lu Luo and Aster also come to fight. The 5 people are in the side hall of the palace, and lanterns are lit around them. In front of Xiao Ming was charcoal, saltpeter, sulfur, and a small scale. While weighing the 3 things, he instructed Lu Channel, crush these 3 things into powder, be careful, it will fry. Lu Tong's face turned pale, and his hands shook for a while. Since he learned chemistry from Xiao Ming, he realized that nothing in this chemistry research can kill people. Now Xiao Ming asked him to engage in such a powerful thing as gunpowder, which put him under a lot of pressure. However, when he thought of the barbarians going south, he gritted his teeth. This was the hatred of the country and the family. In order to destroy the barbarians, not to mention the manufacture of gunpowder, even if he ate it raw, he also ate it. Looking at Lu Tong gritting his teeth and looking like he couldn't get through with the gunpowder material, Xiao Ming was scared. He said, "Be gentle. The finer the powder, the better. Don't use too much force. You won't be able to kill this king. P.S. There are 2 chapters first, and there are 4 more chapters in the evening." Chapter 137 Gunpowder. Your Highness, will this gunpowder really explode? In the dark night, there was only some light in the side hall of the palace. Lu Luo was very timid and looked like she was about to cry. Aster glared at Lu Tong and said, "Thanks to your Highness who appointed you to study chemistry. Go, 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 let me come." After all, Aster couldn't help but say that she took over the job of Lu Tong and carefully crushed the saltpeter. Lu Tong looked embarrassed. How could a man lose to a weak woman? He calmed down, he didn't speak, and took a rolling pin to grind it again. This time Xiao Ming called Lu Tong over to teach him personally. Although this gunpowder is not a secret in the Great Yu Kingdom, it is not something that everyone can master, and the ratio of monosulfur, dinitrogen and charcoal he used this time is the best ratio of black powder. During this time, Xiao Ming has inquired about the ratio of black powder in the Great Yu Kingdom, and the conclusions he has come to are all kinds of strange, and the power of gunpowder prepared according to these proportions can be imagined. Therefore, starting from the production of gunpowder this time, his gunpowder ratio is dominant, and this ratio Lu Tong is naturally unclear. After this teaching, he understands that he is also responsible for the production of gunpowder. After all, the production of artillery is one thing. There are actually a lot of artillery equipment projects. Gunpowder, artillery shells, and artillery bases are all things in the future, but tonight, Xiao Ming is not only to teach Lu Tong to produce the traditional black powder of Yu Kingdom, but to further upgrade the black powder to granular powder, which is also a way to enhance the power of black powder. As for the granulation of gunpowder, it had already appeared in the West in the 15th century of his time, so technically it was not a problem to get it out at this time. After the 3 Asters milled the sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal in their hands into fine powder, at this time, according to Xiao Ming's request, Lu Tong mixed the 3 ingredients according to the ratio of gunpowder. Suddenly, a small pile of black powder appeared in front of the 4 of them. "His Royal Highness, this is it?" Lu Tong asked, looking excited. "This process is not dangerous." "Well, it's done." Xiao Ming was just trying to scare Lu Tong. There is no danger in grinding the 3 materials separately, but now it is really dangerous. Lu Tong had only heard of gunpowder before, but he had never seen it before. At this time, he said, "Your Highness, how do you use this gunpowder?" The first gunpowder in King's Hao was born under his own hands. Xiao Ming was also a little excited. He took out some of the gunpowder and took it to a farther place. Then take a twig and light it on the candle. That's how it works. After Xiao Ming finished speaking, he lightly touched the gunpowder with a branch. With a sound, the gunpowder on the ground suddenly made a soft sound, followed by a thick scient smoke and the smell of gunpowder. Lu Luo was not psychologically prepared, so she screamed and hid behind Xiao Ming. Although Aster is bold, her complexion is also pale. The gunpowder burned very quickly and disappeared after a burst of white light. They had never seen such a strange thing before, and they thought it was a sorcery. Lu Tong was still worried at first, but now that he has really seen gunpowder, he is not afraid anymore. "His Royal Highness, this gunpowder burns really fast." Lu Tong said, "But that's all, it can't kill the barbarians." "Of course not, but you'll know if you can in a while." Xiao Ming beckoned, and a servant walked over with a column-like object. Lu Tong saw it and asked, "Your Highness, what is this?" Xiao Ming laughed. This thing was actually the shell of a firecracker that he had his servants roll up with paper at this time. The bottom of the firecracker has been sealed with yellow mud, and a hole is left on it for gunpowder. You'll find out tomorrow. Xiao Ming picked up the gunpowder and put it in it, then took some yellow mud and stuffed the top of the firecracker at the same time. A needle is used to leave a hole in it, which will be used for lighting in the future. After doing this, Xiao Ming took the firecracker to dry, and when the yellow mud on it solidified, the firecracker was ready to use. Originally, Xiao Ming wanted to teach Lu Tong how to use the cold mixing method to granulate gunpowder, but it was too late to make the black powder, so he planned to leave it for tomorrow. Ask Lu Tong to come back tomorrow. Xiao Ming asks Aster to pack up, and this is the end of the gunpowder production teaching. After sending Lu Tong away, Aster and Luo did not go back to rest, but followed behind Xiao Ming stretching. Xiao Ming said strangely, "Why don't you guys go back? His Royal Highness works day and night for government affairs, and now I have to work hard for the barbarians to go south. Luo and I cannot help His Highness in government affairs, but can always serve His Highness in daily life." Ziwan said obediently. Xiao Ming looked at the two of them. In fact, since ancient times, people have been heart to heart these days. Xiao Ming is good to the servants of the palace, and these servants are naturally grateful to Xiao Ming. The servants in the palace are working harder than before. It's said that Qin Bi does not allow men. Who said that you can't help this king in government affairs? I need your help at that time. Xiao Ming said suddenly. Now King Xiao belongs to the quiet period before the war, and everyone here must use it as much as possible. Aster said in surprise, "What does your highness need us to do?" These days, the King Xiao army's armor is temporarily solved, but the King Xiao army can't wear armor with a bare buttocks, and this involves military clothes, shoes, etc. With the barbarians right in front of him, Xiao Ming had to temporarily switch to the pioneer mode, all for the sake of the army. Many soldiers of the King Xiao army now wear straw sandals and hemp rope shoes, which inevitably causes problems when marching, so Xiao Ming thought about how to make the soldiers wear cloth shoes. In this era, men and women weave. To solve this problem, we must organize a large number of women to participate in this labor. However, it is naturally inappropriate for men to come forward, because women in this era are basically not open to the door, and not to the second door. If Aster and Luo were involved in this matter, it would be different. First, they were people around Xiao Ming, with enough prestige, and no one dared to provoke them. Second, both of them were proficient in women's weaving and were familiar with this. It would be more appropriate for the two to participate in the establishment of the first women's textile factory and quilt factory in this era. Otherwise the loom technology he mastered would be a waste. Thinking of this, Xiao Ming shared his thoughts with the two of them. Aster and Luo immediately laughed when they heard the words "His Royal Highness, we can help with this matter, but when will your highness know how to spin yarn?" Ziwan covered her mouth and smiled. In this era, men and women weave. This is purely a woman's business, and it is inevitable that Aster will laugh. Chapter 138 Craftsman Spirit. Hey, for the sake of the people of the fief, this king is willing to do anything. Faced with the strange eyes of Aster and Luo, Xiao Ming returned the righteousness of the society. Aster and Luo stopped laughing at this time, but looked at Xiao Ming with a look of reverence. In their eyes, the current Xiao Ming can obviously compare to the wise kings, and in ancient times, which girl in the boudoir who was thinking of spring did not like the elegant scholar, the handsome virtuous king? This can be seen from the gaudy novels since ancient times. He smiled smugly. The predecessor Xiao Ming only knew how the overlord was hard on the bow, and how could he understand the psychology of women? The twisted melon was not sweet, and it was really fun to ride the boat smoothly. Leaving a tired back, Xiao Ming went back to rest. Now is not the time to be drunk on a beauty's noon. The next day a loud noise of boom came from the cannon, which brought the tranquility of Prince Qi's mansion. After the loud noise, the guards in the mansion rushed to the place where the noise appeared. When they arrived in the side hall, they found that King Qi was safe and sound, but everyone other than King Qi was pale and seemed to be frightened. In the middle of the side hall, a glass bottle was blown to pieces, and the glass fragments fell to the ground, and there was still smoke from the remaining glass fragments. Your Highness, is this the power of gunpowder? Lu Tong said to Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming nodded. Exactly. Lu Tong sighed for a while, and he said, if it was a barrel of gunpowder, wouldn't it be able to blow up the entire palace? After saying this, Lu Tong saw Xiao Ming and others cast malicious looks at him, and then he realized that he had said the wrong thing. He said, look at this, my mouth is broken. Your Highness, if you know I will say wrong words, not to blow up the palace, but to blow up the Wenbo Academy. No, blow me up. During this time of getting along, Xiao Ming also understood Lu Tong's problems, and what to say when he caught it. He said, "Be careful yourself, when you blow yourself up, this king can't save you. By the way, this gunpowder can't save you. You have also seen the power of gunpowder, and you still have to master the method of granulating this gunpowder naturally." Lu Tong knew nothing about this term. Just like last night, Xiao Ming was going to demonstrate it to Lu Tong himself. In fact, the granulation of gunpowder is mainly by adding a binder, which is the cold mixing method, and the process is actually not that complicated. To put it simply, put the mixed gunpowder into a wooden mortar, then add alcohol, and mix the three powders into a wet mud state at the same time. Use a wooden pestle to continuously stir. During this process, no stone sand can be allowed to enter, otherwise, it is easy to bump and burn the gunpowder during the stirring process. Now Xiao Ming demonstrated it to Lu Tong like this. The power of traditional black powder is not small, but there is one thing: in the process of gunpowder storage and transportation, different components in the gunpowder will be layered. This is like the layering of liquids of different densities. As a result, the effectiveness of gunpowder will be greatly reduced, affecting the use of firearms. Granulation of gunpowder is not a high-tech problem, but the ancients did not realize this problem when they first used gunpowder. Now that Xiao Ming understands this, under the premise that it is technically possible, he naturally solves this problem easily. Lu Tong stared at Xiao Ming's operation for a moment, for fear of missing something. It would be fatal to ignore this thing. Remember, sand and gravel must not be mixed in, and iron and copper cannot be used for grinding. Xiao Ming reminded again the whole process of grinding gunpowder uses wooden tools to prevent sparks from colliding with metals. After mixing the gunpowder, Xiao Ming added water and smashed the mixture. After waiting for a while for the mixture to dry quickly, so that the mixture was fully and evenly mixed, and Xiao Ming took out the gunpowder and dried it in the sun. Since it was already spring, the sun was relatively abundant, and the amount was not large, so the gunpowder dried quickly. At this time, it is time to perform a quality check. At this time, Xiao Ming took a part of the dried gunpowder particles and laid it on the paper. The gunpowder burned very quickly, but the paper in Xiao Ming's hand was intact. He nodded and said to Lu Tong, "Did you see it? How is this effect?" Indicating that the gunpowder was successful. Lu Tong nodded, and then Xiao Ming put the gunpowder in the palm of his hand and wanted to light it again. At this time, Lu Tong said, "Your Highness, let me do this, so as not to hurt your Highness's body. All right, let you feel it." Xiao Ming quickly lit the gunpowder without waiting for Lu Tong to react. The gunpowder particles burned quickly in Lu Tong's palm. At this time, Lu Tong said in surprise, "Your Highness, why don't I feel hot at all?" Hot means that the production of this grain of gunpowder failed. "Okay, I have taught you everything that should be taught. After returning, the production of this gunpowder will be put on the agenda. Remember, if there are black stars and white dots on the paper, if there is a burning sensation in the palm of the hand, this particle of gunpowder is unqualified. It needs to be reworked and ground until it is qualified. Finally, the gunpowder particles must be screened. The radish sieve is used to screen out the gunpowder particles that are suitable for the cannon. As for the gunpowder that is not granulated, it is used as the gunpowder for the fire door, and the remaining fine powder is all removed." Xiao Ming said. Lu Tong nodded. This grain of gunpowder can be said to be technically not difficult, and it is not difficult for him to understand. He bowed and turned to leave the palace. At this time, Xiao Ming said, "Lu Tong, this matter of gunpowder is very important, and it must not be sloppy. If something goes wrong, this king will cut your head off." When Lu Tong heard the words, he intuitionally felt a chill behind him. These days, Xiao Ming and he could be said to be as close as master and apprentice, but when it comes to the safety of King Zhao, Xiao Ming is not humane. He turned around and said, "If there is a problem, Lu Tong will come to see you." Xiao Ming nodded. Technology is one aspect, and the spirit of the craftsman is another aspect. In front of a responsible craftsman, no matter how superb the technology is, it can only produce garbage. In the modern Ming dynasty, it is not that the manufacture of firearms is not advanced, but that there are problems in many aspects of the production process. Officials deduct silvertails, craftsmen are lazy and slippery. These are the reasons why the produced firearms cannot be used on the battlefield at all. So that the firearms in the hands of many Ming soldiers cannot be fired at all, and the artillery explodes at one point. Therefore, in the industrial aspect of King Zhao, Xiao Ming has always paid attention to the cultivation of a craftsman's spirit and put an end to all shoddy manufacturing. On this point, He does not talk about any human feelings because he didn't want to destroy the steel foundation he had worked so hard to build, and the barbarians and those in the Great Yu Kingdom who were waiting to see his jokes wouldn't give him a second chance. Just as Lu Tong went out, a soldier suddenly ran in a hurry and said loudly, "Your Highness, something has happened. Captain Lu and Captain Luo have a fight." Chapter 139 Persuasion. A fight. Everyone in the palace looked at each other in dismay. 2 days ago, Lu Fei and Luo Xin seemed to have hit it off, like they grew up wearing a pair of pants when they were children, because Xiao Ming also gave Luo Xin to Lu Fei with peace of mind, thinking about clearing up the gunpowder thing and then entertaining Luo Xin's complicated feelings. I didn't think about it and it hit. Yet, Your Highness, the soldiers were booing this morning, saying that they wanted to see who was better in martial arts between Colonel Lu and Colonel Luo. The two captains seemed to want to try it too, so they compared. Isn't it normal for this army to compete with each other? Xiao Ming breathed a sigh of relief, thinking it was the soldier who made a fuss. His Royal Highness, there was no problem at the beginning, but Colonel Luo lost, saying that Colonel Lu was powerful with his armor, and Colonel Lu didn't have the demeanor of a big family. Our Highness Colonel Lu also knew that he hated it the most. People take this big clan, the wealthy clan, talks about things, and immediately turn their face with Luo Xiaoyi, saying that Luo Xiaoyi only relied on General Luo to pick up some military exploits, and he had a false name, and the two really fought. Hearing this, Xiao Ming believed that Luo Xin was born in Chang'an no matter what, although he was not used to Xiao Ming's actions at the time, but he also had the habits of a noble son, and this is precisely what the King's Hao army and other local-born generals hate the most. At first, the two hated to meet each other because of each other's fame, but when they got along, naturally they couldn't urinate in a pot. Hey, it's really going to cause trouble for the King. Xiao Ming sighed and took Zhao Long and Zhao Hu towards the King's Hao army camp. Xiao Ming naturally welcomed Luo Xin's visit to King's Hao. After all, this was also the intention of General Luo Quan, and it should not make people feel cold. Moreover, Luo Xin was originally a member of the Imperial Army, and when he appeared here at this time, I am afraid that Xiao Wangxuan would also acquiesce for this cheat father. Xiao Ming's mood is also very complicated. From this point of view, Xiao Wangxuan's decision above the court is really helpless, but this time, if the two of them got into trouble, he would have to turn to Lu Fei, who would let them be his direct generals. Of course, it could ease the relationship between the two and let Luo Xin use it best for him. This is an opportunity to make friends with General Luo Quan, who is unparalleled in the Imperial Army at this time. In the King's Hao camp, Lu Fei and Luo Xin were fighting fiercely. The two of them punched to the bone, and neither would let the other. But it seemed that Luo Xin was a bit miserable. After another move, Luo Xin withdrew 3 steps and scolded, "It's shameless for me to think that you are still a man, taking advantage of me by taking advantage of the armor." After fighting with Lu Fei for a long time, Luo Xin found that this guy was like an iron bucket, and he was also at a loss when he hit. He clenched his painful fist, and he hated it. Lu Fei laughed and said, "Xiao Luo, what you said is wrong. On the battlefield, are you still fighting with barbarians with your ass exposed? It's ridiculous. Just based on this, I know that you haven't seen the real barbarian elite. Those bastards are much more shameless than me. They never fight you head on. They just shoot you with a bow and arrow. Run after him, and shoot arrows when you stop. Nonsense. The barbarian blood on my hands is no less than yours." Luo Xin said angrily. Lu Fei wanted to ridicule Luo Xin, but when he saw Xiao Ming approaching, he immediately shut up and pretended that nothing happened. "What's wrong? The two of you, why haven't you seen such a situation for the past 2 days?" Xiao Ming said, looking at Luo Xin, who had a bruised nose and a swollen face at this time. Lu Fei took off his helmet and showed his face with a shameless smile. The wicked complained first, "Your Highness, Xiao Luo bullies people and looks down on those of us who came from a poor family." "Nonsense. I just said that you are shameless to compete with me by wearing armor." Luo Xin argued. "You just said it." Lu Fei roared. Xiao Ming said, "2. How do you say that one is the captain of the King's Hao army, and the other is the captain of the Forbidden Army? In front of so many soldiers, he is like a ruffian on the street. Aren't you afraid of the soldiers laughing at him?" At this time, the two of them reacted. They looked at the soldiers around them, and many of them were secretly laughing. Lu Fei scolded, "What are you looking at? If you don't hurry up on training, if someone makes a mistake in the battle, see if I don't rip him off." When the soldiers heard the words, they immediately began to practice again. Xiao Ming said, "It's not appropriate to talk here. You two should come with me." Taking Luo Xin and Lu Fei to the grove outside the King's Hao camp, Xiao Ming said, "Erlang, the King's Hao army, never pay attention to my background. because Colonel Lu is so angry, so please don't take offense. Luo Xin is also a very proud person. He was not happy about coming to King Zhao. Now he is very unhappy with Lu Fei. He said, Your Highness does not need to say, since the King Zhao army does not welcome me, I will go back to Chang'an. We can't afford to serve an uncle like you. Lu Fei looked at the sky. Xiao Ming glared at Lu Fei. Okay, in the whole King Zhao, who doesn't know that you Lu Fei is a thorn? Erlang has something wrong, but you are not without fault, and then your custom plate armor will be yours. Don't think about it. Lu Fei was in a hurry. He could not want anything, but he couldn't do without this plate armor. During this period of time, he was using it smoothly, especially this customized plate armor, which was difficult for bows and arrows to hurt. This Lu Fei is a thorn and a rogue, and said with a smile, Zia Luo, I'm sorry, it was me Lu Fei who was wrong. Next time we take off the plate armor, we will come again. HMPH, who will reappear with you? No see. Luo Xin said, turning to leave. Lu Fei compromised for the sake of plate armor, and did not hold back when he saw Luo Xin leaving at this time. Xiao Ming said, Erlang, think about why General Luo asked you to come to King Zhao. If you can't bear this grievance, you should go back to General Luo to be a school captain and live a romantic life in Chang'an. In the future, the generals of the King Zhao army will also look down on powerful children like you, because they are right to look down on you. When they are fighting bloody battles with the barbarians, you will only choose to retreat. Luo Xin, who was walking out, suddenly stopped. Why did he come to King Zhao? It's not because of the ambition to drive the barbarians out of the Central Plains when the Qin dynasty is bright and the moon is at the Han dynasty. The people on the long march have not returned, but the Dragon City will be there, and I will not teach Huma to cross the Yin Mountain. At this time, Xiao Ming recited this poem softly. Luo Xin's body trembled slightly. Xiao Ming's voice became agitated when he read this poem, which made Luo Xin feel a sense of blood boiling. The desolation in this poem seems to haunt him in his heart. Over the years, the children of the Han family have always won victory with their steely will in the face of foreign invasions. It's a good one, but the Dragon City will be here, and I won't teach Huma to cross the Yin Mountain. Luo Xin turned around. Many people say that His Highness is outstanding, but now that he sees it, he really has a different reaction. Chapter 140 Poetry Utility. The breeze rustled through the treetops. Luo Xin glanced at Lu Fei, who was indifferent to this poem, and sighed in his heart. He was born in a family of military merit for generations, and he was not as good as a man from a poor family. Lu Fei was inexplicably seen by Luo Xin. He only vaguely understood the meaning of this poem, but it was far less profound than Luo Xin's understanding. Not going? Xiao Ming said with a smile. He now trains Chang Shi to do ideological work in the army every day, and he has become half a Chang Shi now, and he likes to talk big when he sees people. Luo Xin said, I only want to be the flying general of Longcheng. As for Colonel He Lu, I will not forgive him. Lu Fei rolled his eyes. Then Luo Xin said, unless your highness also gives me a set of plate armor, so that I will have a real contest with Colonel Lu. Xiao Ming was depressed, and thought that the two of you would fight, but I would lose money and send plate armor. However, he is now a vassal king, and he still has to do things like Li Xian Corporal. Otherwise, who will come here with all the talents in the world? After all, ancient times were a time of great fame, and many talented and learned people came for the reputation of Lixin Corporal. In fact, Luo Xin is indeed a good general, and it involves General Luo, so that Luo Xin slipped back. And it would inevitably make General Luo feel chilled. How to say people are also a sincere heart. Okay, I'll give this plate armor. Xiao Ming said, but whoever wants to stir up troubles in the future, I'll ask military law to deal with it. Yes, Your Highness. Lu Fei and Luo Xin said at the same time. From Luo Xin's arrival, Xiao Ming knew that there would definitely be some odds, and that's what happened now, but since it's resolved, this matter is over. King Zhao City now needs a general to take charge, and the matter of the remnants of the wealthy family has not yet been settled. According to Zhang Xingcheng, many remnants of the wealthy family have fled into the mountains and become pirates, often harassing the people. Zhang Xingcheng is good at planning, but execution requires a general who can conquer and fight well. This person, Luo Xin, is more suitable. After all, Lu Fei is going to Kangzhou City, because from now on, Kangzhou City will be reinforced, and some artillery towers will be expanded at the same time to improve Kangzhou City's defense capabilities. After dealing with the conflict between the two, Xiao Ming returned to the palace. That night, he received a newspaper manuscript from Fan Zheng. Xiao Ming naturally had to personally review the communication of this newspaper relationship information to the following. and remove inappropriate content, but today's content in the newspaper surprised him a lot. Why did my poems from King's Hao camp also appear in the newspaper? Fan Zeng stood beside Xiaoming, and every time Xiaoming reviewed it, he would take the newspaper and go back to print it. Hearing this, he said, "His Royal Highness, there are also reporters in the army." Luo Xiaoyi engraved His Highness's poem on the wall of the King's Hao army camp, and the reporter saw it, so he copied it back and recorded it in the newspaper. After a pause, Fan Zeng said, "Xiaoguan thinks that His Highness's poem is majestic and imposing. When the barbarians are about to go south, the newspaper can have the effect of encouraging the literati." People of the fief nodding his head, Xiaoming felt that Fan Zeng's words also made sense. It was like a march of the volunteers. It was not as simple as a song. It was sung by everyone in the environment at the time, and it played a big publicity effect. Well, since that's the case, let's go. Xiaoming doesn't care whether he copied it or not. Anyway, he has crossed over, so what kind of morals do he need? Fan Zeng happily took the newspaper and went back. Judging from Xiaoming's attitude, he seemed very satisfied with the newspaper. It's just that neither of them thought that as soon as the newspaper was published, the poem immediately caused a sensation among the literati. Qin is bright, and the moon is Han Dynasty, and the people of the Long March have not returned, but the Dragon City will be there, and I will not teach Huma to cross the Yin Mountain. God, Han Shuang has been studying hard for more than 10 years, and I have read it into the stomach of a dog. Why? I can't make such a majestic verse in the Wei family restaurant. A scholar beat his chest and stomped his feet, looking like he was unlovable. The scholars who were sitting at the same table shook their heads and sighed. Before, Wang Shiji and others were called the 4 great talents of King's Hao. I think they are all bullshit. This Highness is the #1 talent in King's Hao Ba, the #1 talent in King's Hao. Thanks to what you said, I think it's almost as if our Highness is the #1 talent in the Great Yu Kingdom. A scholar said with disdain, "Hey, I want to transcribe this poem and hang it in my home to look at it every day to flog myself. As a vassal king, your Highness is proficient in poetry and books, so what face do I have to live in the world? Why is this? His Highness teaches at Bowen College. Xiongte is the style of His Royal Highness that can be touched by Bowen College. Who needs to enter? This is justified. Your Highness is a great talent, and this Bowen Academy is certainly extraordinary." Sitting next to the scholar was a table of businessmen, and a businessman on the table was holding a thick stack of newspapers. Someone at the same table wondered, "Brother Sun, why did you buy so many newspapers?" The businessman surnamed Sun said, "Brother Ma, don't you understand? You and I have a very close relationship, so I will tell you a way to make money." The merchant surnamed Ma smiled and said, "Brother Sun, please speak." The merchant surnamed Sun said, "Today, this poem by His Highness is being recited everywhere in King's Hao City, and now this newspaper has been snapped up because of His Highness's poem. It can be seen that this poem is probably a masterpiece. There are many famous scholars in Chang'an City. His writings are very rare, and if the newspaper of this poem written by His Royal Highness is sent to Chang'an, it is estimated that it will be a big sale." The businessman surnamed Ma was startled and thought to himself, why didn't he think of this? It's no wonder that his own business is not as good as him. However, it seems that the newspapers of this King's Hao newspaper are rationed every day, and there will be no more when they are sold out. Thinking of this, he can't help but feel remorse looking at the newspaper of the other party. The businessman surnamed Ma had an idea, pointed to the inside and shouted, "Tofu Zaishi is out immediately." Everyone looked at the interior, and the businessman surnamed Ma immediately picked up the newspaper of the businessman surnamed Sun and fled. The merchant surnamed Sun came back to his senses and scolded his feet angrily, "Ignorant, you are ignoring my good intentions to teach you how to make money. You actually hurt me so much, I will fight with you after all." He chased out. At the same time, the newspapers also aroused huge repercussions in the other 6 states, and the people scrambled to spread the poem, and many people raised their blood to resist the barbarians. Now the nobles are gone. They have got their own land, happy days are just around the corner, and the barbarians don't want to ruin their lives. Not only in Xiaoming's fief, the newspapers gradually spread to all parts of the Great Yu Kingdom under the promotion of the merchants, and also spread to the capital of the Great Yu Kingdom, Chang'an City. This agitated and murderous poem instantly spread among the literati in Chang'an City. And the price of newspapers also went up, which also aroused many reactions. P.S. The 4 chapters have been updated. Ask for a monthly pass, ask for a reward, and let the snail roll. Chapter 141 Fiji. Chang'an City, Kishan Square. This is a well-known Minfang in Chang'an City, because in this Minfang lived the Fei family, known as the fourth generation and the third public, who are disciples and officials all over the world. On weekdays, there is an endless stream of people coming and going in and out of the Fei's house. These people are not lacking in court officials, literati and writers, and even generals in the army. There is no other reason. The Fei family is famous all over the world. Although it is not divided into one side like other aristocrats, after several dynasties, the figure of the Fei family has never disappeared in the court hall. It is precisely because of this that the wealthy families of Dao Kingdom are all proud of being able to marry the daughter of the Fei family, because in this way, they will gain a better reputation and their children will be able to hold their heads up in the officialdom. After all, in the country of Great Yu, where the rich and powerful family is deeply rooted, the dignitaries are very particular about blood. Those children of the poor family who have become officials and generals from the grass have a deep sense of inferiority in front of the dignitaries. The grass chicken has become a phoenix. Today is the day of rest, and it is rare in Fiji, the head of the Fiji family, to have a day off in a month. The Great Yu state stipulates that officials can take one day off a month, commonly known as Ziumu. On this day, officials can either go out for fun, or visit relatives and friends. It's just that on these days, Fiji is always busier than it was in the previous dynasty. After the early morning, many officials came one after another, sent gifts and chatted with him about interesting things in the city. Fei's Hongshu, have you heard about the very hot newspapers in Chang'an these 2 days? The person who came to visit was Luo Quan, the general of Huaho. Fiji was slightly surprised. Newspaper? What is this? But have you never heard of it? Unlike others, Luo Quan has always had a good relationship with Fiji. Every time he comes to see him, he is just to talk about the affairs of the court, not as impure as others. Therefore, every time Fiji did not want to see guests, it said that General Luo Quan was in the house. Everyone knows Luo Quan's fiery temper in Chang'an City. Those officials learned that Luo Quan was in the mansion, and they would know their interests and stop bothering them. This newspaper is from the hands of King Qi. It was originally only circulated in Qingzhou, but this time it was spread to Chang'an. Do you know why, King Qi? Fiji's expression was a little strange. Xiao Wangsun summoned him alone a few days ago. He didn't ask about the government, but asked his youngest daughter, Fei Yu'er, how she is doing today and so on. Having been in the officialdom for decades, Fiji, who had assisted 2 generations of emperors, understood Xiao Wangsun's intentions at a moment's notice. It was estimated that he wanted to propose a marriage for the prince, but now among the princes, the prince married her eldest daughter, and the other princes also had concubines. It was impossible for Xiao Wangsun to let the daughter of his Fei family be a concubine. Thinking of it this way, there is only one King Qi who has not yet married. At that time, when I figured it out, Fiji only dealt with it a few words. And Xiao Wangsun seemed to be just probing and didn't ask any more questions. But since then, when King Qi was mentioned, he became somewhat vigilant. This Fei Yu'er is his youngest daughter and his most beloved daughter. She has been frail and sick since she was a child, but she is extremely intelligent. Every time I see her, Fiji can always think of the figure of his deceased wife, because he loves this daughter more and more. It is precisely because of this that Fiji never wanted to let Fei Yu marry someone else. Luo Quan didn't notice the change in Fiji's expression, and continued, exactly, a few days ago, I sent my dog Luo Xin to Qingzhou, hoping to help King Qi, but I didn't expect that this bastard would cause trouble just after he went to Qingzhou. This incident. With that said, Luo Quan took out a newspaper from his arms and said in pain, these profiteers really changed their minds. A newspaper even sold for 10 taels of silver. The moment Fiji saw the newspaper, his eyes lit up. He quickly took the newspaper from Luo Quan and was deeply attracted by its content. I heard that this King Qi's behavior is different from ordinary people. When I saw this newspaper today, it really is. It's just that people can come up with a decree on it. Fiji said while watching. Luo Quan said, maybe this is what Pang Yukin did. He was unhappy when he was in Chang'an, but he was quite talented. I understand Pang Yukin. He has knowledge, but he has always been rigid, and he would never propose such a strange decree to King Qi. Fiji said. Then he continued to look down and saw an interesting story in the army, which was the story of Luo Xin and the local defender Lu Fei. He suddenly laughed. General Luo, you see what I said is right, Luo Xin. When you arrive in Qingzhou, you may not be able to stay. Now, the Qingzhou rich family is out of 10, and King Qi relies on the children of the poor family. Those people naturally can't bear the shortcomings of Luo Xin. Luo Quan said angrily, this bastard, I specially told him to be patient, This time is just for the sake of the family and the country. Hey, doesn't this make King Qi laugh at our Luo family? But you continue to look down. This Qi Wang is very capable, but just one poem left my bastard behind. The smile on Fiji's face disappeared at this time. Qin is the bright moon and the Han dynasty is close, and the people on the long march have not returned, but the Dragon City will be here, and I will not teach Huma to cross the Yin Mountain. Wonderful. Reading this, Fiji applauded and looked excited. Luo Quan said with a smile, when I read this poem, I only felt that my blood was boiling in my heart, and I could not wait to fight against the barbarians, so as to solve the hatred in my heart. My children of the Han family have been bullied by foreigners for many years. When will they be able to be like this? The great Han generally marched from the south to the north, so that the barbarians would not dare to cross the Yin Mountain from now on. At the court that day, Fiji neither agreed nor opposed that the Fei family can continue to this day, naturally because it can accurately see the struggle above the court, and the most important point is that the Fei family never participates in party disputes. Because of this, the emperors of all dynasties will always be at ease with the Fei family. So from the very beginning, he understood that no matter how much quarrel, it was useless. The royal family was declining. And now he could only rely on a different surnamed king to guard the northern gateway. The barbarians were powerful and everyone was afraid. It's just that, like Luo Quan, he also hopes that the great Yu kingdom can jointly resist the barbarians, but this is only his idea. He is very aware that under the current situation, it is already impossible. I didn't expect that the stubborn King Qi in Chang'an City would still have such literary talent. It's rare. Hey, I just hope that King Qi can stop the barbarians from going south. In this way, the great Yu kingdom can still be saved, otherwise the great Yu kingdom will be saved. The sunset is a foregone conclusion. Fiji shook his head and sighed. Luo Quan said displeased, why does Fei's Hongshu say such depressing words? Even if King Qi can't stop the barbarians, there are still me, Luo Quan and the Forbidden Army. HMPH, General Luo's thinking is too simple. If the barbarians succeed in going south, there will only be one King Yuan left in this royal family. From then on, the situation of equal power between the royal family and the different surnamed vassals will be broken. The beginning of the turmoil in Yu. Chapter 142. Unparalleled Beauty. The tea on the table had a faint fragrance, and the room was silent. Luo Quan looked at Fiji and was silent for a long time. With your majesty's wisdom, can't you see the current situation in the world? If so, why not send the Forbidden Army to King Zhao? General Luo, if this matter were so simple, your majesty wouldn't be so angry. What King Zhao hopes is to bring disaster to the east. If the Forbidden Army is dispatched, the barbarians will definitely attack King Yuan, and the fiefs of King Zhao and King Liang will be restrained. You say they will. Would you like it? If your majesty goes his own way and provokes the barbarians to attack, they only need to deliberately let the barbarians in, and they can directly threaten Chang'an, so the Forbidden Army cannot move. Now the best outcome is that King Wei helps King Qi to defend King Zhao. After all, King Wei is their many vassal kings are also very powerful, and if they do their best to defend the King Zhao, there should be no problem. It's just that King Wei probably won't do his best. Luo Quan said with narrowed eyes. It seems that General Luo is also a smart person, but everyone in the world can see it clearly. Only His Majesty can't see King Wei. He is too deceived. Also, the pain of King Ning has always made His Majesty feel ashamed. Hey. Fiji sighed faintly. Luo Quan nodded, admiring Fiji secretly in his heart. This thin, meatless guy has always seen the situation of Deu country very accurately. If so, how can this be good? Luo Quan worried. Isn't this a dead end? It is indeed a dead end, but it is not necessarily. Whether the great Yu kingdom can continue to prosper depends on whether King Qi and King Wei can cooperate sincerely. If the two highnesses ignore the danger of the great Yu kingdom, the royal family will be in danger. Luo Quan nodded. What Fei's Hongshu said is very true. This time the dog went to King Zhao with His Majesty's acquiescence, and it is estimated that he is also worried. Fiji smiled. Don't talk about this. Come, drink tea. Some things can only wait for them to change. Your Majesty must think about it this way. Luo Quan nodded, and the two drank tea for a while. Suddenly, Xiao Huigman came to report, and it was said that the emperor asked the two to accompany them to swim the lake. The two had to go. The two walked in a hurry, but the newspaper was thrown in the main hall. At this time, a slender hand reached out and picked up the newspaper. Miss, what is this? Appearing in the main hall is a pair of master and servant. One of them is a woman with a beautiful face, a graceful figure, a creamy skin, a pair of clear red phoenix eyes, and flying stars. This person is none other than Fiji's youngest daughter, Fayuir. The woman beside her was dressed in a cyan skirt, with a round head and a round face. It was her close-fitting girl ring. Is this a newspaper? Fayuir scrutinized the contents of the newspaper. Cousin mentioned this King's How newspaper to me a few days ago, so it seems very similar, and it seems to be recorded in King's How. Is that the King Ki who fled back to Chang'an 3 years ago and was whipped by the emperor? Zaya Ahun pouted. Then there is nothing to read in this newspaper. Fayuir pursed her lips and chuckled. Her beauty was indescribable, so Zaya Ahun was also stunned. She thought that it was no wonder that young Master Bao had to run to Fei's house all day long, and he didn't think about lunch when he didn't see it. Fayuir wanted to let go. Her impression of Xiaoming was only in the legends of outsiders. He was rebellious, had an erratic personality, and fled from battle. All these things added up. This King Ki was a very unbearable character, but when she scanned a poem, she was stunned. Fayuir was frail, and Fiji never let her move around a lot, but her boudoir was really annoying, so whenever Fiji went out, Zaya Ahun secretly took Fayuir to play in the house. Seeing Fiji and General Luo going out today, Zaya Ahun went back and informed Fayuir, "Miss, what's the matter?" Seeing Fayuir's eyes flashing, Zaya Huan couldn't help asking Zaya Ahun, "Do you think King Ki is really as bad as others say?" Fayuir asked. Zaya Ahun thought for a while. "This is just hearsay, but so many people say yes, it shouldn't be wrong. Kin, the moon is bright and the moon is Han, and the people of the Long March have not returned, but the Dragon City will be there, and I will not teach Huma to cross the Yin Mountain." Fayuir said softly, and said, "A person who is so unbearable can write such a story. A soul-stirring poem." Thinking of this, Fayuir couldn't help sighing. Zaya Ahun took Fayuir's hand. "Miss, don't worry about King Ki. Let's go to the pond to feed the fish while the master is out, or wait for the young master to come, and then we will learn to show off." Fayuir showed a playful look and went to the backyard with Zaya Huan. At this time, Fiji and Luo Quan had arrived at Gujiang Pond in the south of the city because of the beautiful scenery. In April every year, literati, scholars, and beauties will gather here to play in the spring, including some dignitaries, and Zhao Wengsun was tired of the scenery in the palace. And sometimes he would take a painting boat and invite 3 or 2 close officials to drink and have fun on the lake. His Majesty seems to be in high spirits. I wonder if there is a happy event? In the painting boat, Zhao Wengsun was always smiling, and Fiji couldn't help asking. Zhao Wengsun laughed twice and said, "You must have read King Ki's poems too. Last time I was drunk in King's How. I didn't expect that this time I would be amazed." Again mentioning this, Fiji and Luo Quan immediately understood that Zhao Wengsun was here to show off. This time, although he is an emperor, his son can make a good sentence that even a genius in Chang'an can't match, which really makes Zhao Wengsun, a father, satisfied. "Your Majesty also saw it?" Fiji asked with a smile. "We should look at it with admiration every 3 days, and this time we are also eye-opening." Zhao Wengsun laughed twice and suddenly said, "In this way, I have more confidence in Kang's How. Just relying on this poem, you can see your King Ki's attitude towards the barbarians going south. I'm afraid King Zhao Al. I am afraid that all the vassal kings will be disappointed." Fiji and Luo Quan looked at each other. No wonder Zhao Wengsun was so happy. After a pause, Zhao Wengsun continued, "It's just that King Ki's fief is still a little weak. Although the Forbidden Army should not be mobilized, it can be supported from the money and food." "Fiji, what do you think?" "Xiaoguan understands, and tomorrow morning the court will send a message to His Majesty to allocate some money and grain for King Ki." Fiji replied, "This is already a tacit understanding between their monarchs and ministers." Then Zhao Wengsun said to Luo Quan, "Luo Quan, I remember that Niu Ben is still doing hard labor." "Right." Luo Quan was excited, clasped his fists and said, "That's right, Niu Ben is still being punished for hard labor in the mine. Your Majesty, let him go to King's How to continue his hard labor." Zhao Wengsun said lightly. Luo Quan is overjoyed. This Niu Ben is the same as him in the main war faction in the DPRK, but Niu Ben is just like his name, with a bullish temper. Because the court is openly disrespectful to Zhao Wengsun, he was sent to the mine for hard labor, and now he is gone 5 years. Now the fierce general is finally going out of the mountain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143, A Failed Strategy. After the Qingming festival, the drizzle continued to fall, and the streets and alleys of Qingzhou were muddy everywhere. Xiaoming has been running around in the past few days, but he is really fed up with the muddy days. He thinks that if he can hold Qingzhou, he must build a few concrete roads that run through Qingzhou. Also correct the drainage. After all, this infrastructure is also one of the necessary projects for fief construction, and creating a favorable living environment can also attract businessmen from Dao to settle in Qingzhou at that time. If the land is sold again, hey, the legendary land finance will come, but when it rains, it is always boring, and the equipment department forged Luo Xin's plate armor again, so he sent someone to let Luo Xin come over, and asked Luo Xin something. By the way, Your Highness, the plate armor is ready so soon. This plate armor is naturally to appease Luo Xin. He asked the Iron and Steel Workshop to customize a set of general's plate armor for Luo Xin. Different from the plate armor worn by ordinary soldiers, the general's plate armor is not only beautiful, but also thicker, not to mention Lu Fei's strength. Luo Xin's strength is also enough to put on this set of thickened plate armor. Try it on? Xiaoming leaned on the chair and said 2 of the 4 former friends died, and now the remaining Qin Mu and Wei Qing were too frightened to speak in front of him for a while. Xiaoming suddenly felt a sense of being alone. However, this Luo Xin came from Chang'an, so he wouldn't appear too restrained in front of him like others. After all, the relationship between the officials of the Great Yu Kingdom was still very harmonious. It has been 10 days since the last incident with the Qingzhou army. Although the relationship between Luo Xin and Lu Fei was not as harmonious as it was at first, it was relatively relaxed, and one of his poems also changed Luo Xin's attitude towards him, but he visited him from time to time in the palace. After all, when Luo Xin arrived in Qingzhou alone, he had no relatives, and Xiaoming finally knew each other these days. Luo Xin was very envious of the plate armor that Lu Fei wore in the army, especially the quality of the plate armor. He was very surprised, because in his opinion, the level of forging swords in Qingzhou was even much higher than that of Chang'an's equipment department. He had never eaten pork, and had seen pigs run away. In the army, he had naturally seen how the soldiers wore plate armor, and he wore the plate armor in a fashionable manner immediately. A man in full-length steel armor stood in front of Xiaoming. Not bad. Xiaoming nodded with satisfaction. This armor deserves to be customized. In fact, the plate armor on each soldier is almost tailor-made, otherwise there will be situations where it cannot be worn, and this is also a drawback of plate armor production. Thank you, Your Highness. Luo Xin happily looked at the plate armor on his body. This was the happiest time he had been to Qingzhou. Putting on the plate armor, Luo Xin turned around and was about to leave. Xiaoming immediately stopped Luo Xin. Where are you going? Look for Lu Fei to try again. HMPH, this time the newspapers have been spread to Chang'an. I, Luo Xin, have never been so embarrassed. I must clean him up. Luo Xin was very angry when he remembered it. Xiaoming felt helpless for a while. He didn't expect that the newspaper would go to Chang'an because of a poem. In the next 7 days, he not only received a letter from concubine Zhen, but also got a will to send Niu Ben to Qingzhou, and Fiji played on the court, and the court gave Qingzhou 2 million grains of grain, 5,000 pieces of silk cloth, and 200,000 taels of silver. This surprised him a bit. This ancient march and war had serious damage to production, not to mention that soldiers can't produce food. This survey of civilians to transport food and grass also makes it impossible for them to produce food. Xiao Wangsuan gave him so much food, which can also ease the food problem in Qingzhou. After all, the current Qingzhou is still in a food crisis. When the green and yellow are not connected, it is the most difficult. When the food is harvested this season, it is estimated that it will be better fight again. You are not afraid that this newspaper will be spread to Chang'an again? If you lose, you will still lose face, and if you win, you will also lose face of General Luo Quan. How can you still be ashamed if you win? Luo Xin's head was in the armor, and his speech was a little vague. Xiaoming sneered. General Luo has always been strict with the army. As a colonel, not only do you not set an example for the soldiers, but you also take the lead in fighting. What does it look like? When Luo Xin thought about it, it seemed to be the case, but the matter of being cleaned up by Lu Fei's fists made him always full of fire, and he couldn't help slamming the table hard. This can't be, that can't be, Your Highness, you are eccentric. How can this king be partial? Now I have something to take advantage of you. I just received the order that the Emperor will send General Nilbin to Qingzhou for hard labor. I will leave this to you, General Nilbin. Luo Xin couldn't believe his ears. This is a figure that is comparable to his father, and is proficient in the art of war. In this respect, even his father is not as good at as General Niu Ben. since he has arrived in Qingzhou, let him do hard labor in the Qingzhou army. Xiao Ming said lightly. This new Ben was convicted for colliding with Xiao Wangxun. Now Xiao Wangxun made it clear that he was assigned to Qingzhou to let Xiao Ming find a way to make this new Ben available to the Qingzhou army. It's just that this new Ben dared to collide with Xiao Wangxun. How could Xiao Ming easily conquer such a person? However, if this can really make Niu Ben use it for himself, the Qingzhou army has really gained a commander-level character since then, which is very beneficial to the development of the Qingzhou army. After all, Lu Fei is a thorn, with many advantages and disadvantages. Luo Xin may not be able to stay in Qingzhou. He is a temporary staff. Luo Xin naturally understood this matter as soon as he thought about it, and Xiao Wangxun was giving away someone to Xiao Ming. The general of the main battle faction could not see Qingzhou city being destroyed and remain indifferent. Yes, Your Highness, I will take good care of General Niu. Luo Xin cupped his hands. Xiao Ming nodded and explained when Luo Xin was going to pick up General Niu, so he let him go back for Xiao Wangxun's kindness. Xiao Ming took it, but what he wanted was the crushing of barbarians by artillery, and the generals Qingzhou needed in the future were also generals who could command firearms to fight. But thinking that it would take a transition from cold weapons to hot weapons, he just gave up. As soon as Luo Xin left, Zan Xingcheng walked in. He said to Xiao Ming, His Royal Highness, except for King Yuan, who is willing to provide 100,000 shi of grain, all the other vassal kings are embarrassed and unable to support. Speaking of this, Zan Xingcheng was very ashamed. He was still confident, but obviously the shamelessness of these different surnamed vassal kings exceeded his expectations. It's right if you don't give it. Xiao Ming said, I originally just wanted to test the attitude of these people, so it seems that these people really have bad intentions. I have to remember their kindness. Back then Xiao Ming pretended to be lofty, and he had already scolded the 18th generation of the ancestors of King Zhao and others in his heart, and these bastards were too disrespectful to him. Chapter 144 The Benefit of Cement. P.S. Open the fan list to see a leader. Thank the leader of Yang 199,174 for the reward. I will add more updates for the leader tomorrow, and at the same time, I feel everyone's support. And by the way, roll for tickets, Your Highness. Is this matter? Zan Xingcheng was a little unwilling. Remember, anger without strength is meaningless. Conspiracy and tricks are just paper tigers in the face of absolute power. Wait, this king will let them beg for money and food, but before that, you should focus on your energy. Let's repair Qingzhou City, Xiao Ming said to Zan Xingcheng. Yes, Your Highness. Zan Xingcheng nodded. These vassal kings were so brazen, there was nothing he could do when it comes to repairing the city wall. Xiao Ming said, by the way, you and this king go to the workshop area. This time the repairing of the city wall is not the previous method, it is too slow. After all, when the two arrived in the workshop area, Xiao Ming took Zan Xingcheng directly to the cement workshop. Your Highness, what are these powders? In the workshop area, even Zan Xingcheng couldn't come and go at will, and he naturally didn't know what was inside. This thing is called cement. For a long time, this cement was only used for the construction of the workshop area. Xiao Ming glanced around the workshop area that was beginning to take shape with the improvement of the workshop area. The living area and the workshop area have been separated. In the living area, a canteen was also built to supply the slaves with 3 meals a day, and the houses in the living area were all brick concrete structures, composed of cement and blue bricks. The design of these houses is naturally from Xiao Ming. Compared with a wooden structure, it is not beautiful, but it is very durable and strong. Each house is in the shape of a long strip with a large shop inside, and each room houses 50 people. Cement? Zan Xingcheng glanced at the things between the blue bricks in the cement workshop and asked, Your Highness, is this cement? Zan Xingcheng was pointing at what was between the bricks. Xiao Ming has always kept a low profile when it comes to things like cement. Many people don't pay attention to the role of cement. Now is finally the time to let cement play its role. The traditional city walls are basically mining rocks and then transporting them back to build them, which is too inefficient. On the other hand, cement is different. The firing of green bricks or red bricks can be obtained from local materials, and it is only necessary to transport cement from Qingzhou in the process of masonry. The amount of cement is not much, and it is estimated that one-time transportation can meet the needs of Qingzhou City. Furthermore, the masonry process is very flexible and fast. If one layer of bricks is not enough, another layer can be built to continuously strengthen the thickness. In modern times, there are mature masonry techniques for reference. Generally speaking, 10 craftsmen can build a house of 400 square meters and more than 3 meters high in 3 days. Now Xiaoming has trained some mature bricklayers in the workshop area to prepare for the renovation of the city walls of Kangzhou City. Well, as you can see, if cement is stuck between the two bricks, the two bricks will be very firm when they dry up. Now I will take you to see how the craftsmen build it. Think about how to put it together. The expansion of the city walls of Kangzhou City is more suitable for artillery shooting. Xiaoming said to Zhang Xingcheng in response to the barbarians going south, the artillery has been put on the agenda, and the repair of Kangzhou City has to be put on the agenda during this time. When the artillery was being cast, Xiaoming instructed the cement workshop to step up the production of cement, in order to hand over the cement to Zhang Xingcheng today, and let him go to Kangzhou City to repair the city walls. Zhang Xingcheng nodded and followed Xiaoming to a building under construction in the workshop area. This building was built next to the water and seemed to have just started. This is a textile workshop. The factory is currently under construction. When the textile machine comes out, it will provide the Kangzhou army with uniforms such as military uniforms. Xiaoming said he is now making Chen Qi restore the multi-spindle spinning machine with Wang Daopo spinning machine. At present, the spinning machine in Dao country can only spin one yarn, which is inefficient. Such efficiency is far from meeting the current needs. And once the multi-spindle spinning machine appears, this phenomenon will change in the modern Yuan dynasty. The appearance of Wang Daopo's spinning machine once greatly increased the production of cloth in Wang Daopo's hometown. Now Xiaoming makes Chen Qi's spinning machine more advanced than Wang Daopo's, and this spinning machine is also pedal-powered, which can be popularized in the private sector. Enough to motivate women in 6 states to spin and promote the development of Kangzhou's textile industry. The rise of modern Britain was precisely when the textile industry was the leading industry in which a great deal of wealth was gathered. Therefore, Xiaoming also attaches great importance to this matter. While talking, Zhang Xingchen kept staring at the mason building the wall, and seeing a mason soon build a thick wall, Zhang Xingchen gradually showed an excited look. His Royal Highness, this kind of craftsmanship is much faster than mining rocks to build a city wall. If you give me enough manpower, I promise to build Kangzhou City into a mighty gate in the world within 5 months. Zhang Xingcheng said the matter of begging for money and grain from other vassal kings has caused Zhang Xingcheng to suffer a lot. Xiaoming intends to restore some confidence to him, because this matter is asked to do, but it may not be able to be done well. At least Zhang Xingcheng also let him. King Yuan spit out something. Since that's the case, this matter is left to you, but what are your plans? Xiaoming asked. He still wanted to know about Zhang Xingcheng's plan to build a building. After all, the barbarians going south was no child's play. Building a turret on top of the city wall is one of them. Second, I will extend the city wall, and also build a turret and arrow tower on the extended city wall, so that more artillery can be fired. After a pause, Zhang Xingcheng suddenly laughed wickedly, and seeing the function of the cement and blue bricks of His Highness today, I suddenly thought of a new method. That is to build brick pillars one by one in front of the city wall, so that if the barbarians come, it can slow down their attack, and it will prevent them from setting up the ladder in time. Xiaoming nodded with satisfaction, but Zhang Xingcheng realized it very quickly. The stone pillars he mentioned are similar to the roll of horses. But at this time, this kind of pillars are used by people. Artillery is for long-range shooting. When it reaches the city wall, the effect of this artillery is greatly reduced. At this time, a short-range weapon is needed to fight back. Naturally, the bow and crossbow. Zhang Xingcheng's suggestion made Xiaoming suddenly consider making a native grenade. This method is to put the gunpowder in a moderately sized clay pot, plug the mouth of the pot with a wooden stopper, place a medicine screw in the middle, and throw it when it is lit, similar to a gun battle, but with a higher power. When they were near, these savage soldiers were blocked by stone pillars, and when they gathered into a pile, they were thrown into it, which was probably very sour. Thinking of this, Xiaoming became more confident in dealing with the barbarians going south this time. As long as the barbarians came over, they would definitely be frightened by this new type of weapon. Chapter 145. The gentle breeze blew up with a drizzle on the official road leading to Kangzhou City. Businessmen were walking in a hurry. Although it was almost May, the coolness in the air seemed to have become thicker in this spring rain. Among the crowds of people who were mixed with business travelers and people, a pair of guards holding a sword on the waist was particularly eye-catching, and the pedestrians seemed to deliberately keep their distance. But what makes people strange is that these two officers seemed to have great respect for the prisoner walking in front, not as impatient as escorting other prisoners. General Niu, Kangzhou City is in front of this. Seeing the city walls of Kangzhou City from a distance, A sergeant said cautiously. The prisoner in front of the officer was dressed in a gray prison uniform, with gray and macy hair, some straw on his long beard. And the thick calluses on his palms proved that he had suffered hard labor. Well, thank you to Niu Ben glanced at King's Hao City. He thought he would serve hard labor in the mines all his life, but Xiao Wangsun sent him to King's Hao again half a month ago, and when he got this news, the attitude of the mine officers towards him also changed. When he was in the mine before, these officers would never think of his illustrious military exploits. In their eyes, Niu Ben was just a person who would serve in the mine until his death, but now these officers have suddenly become very attentive, and they take care of them on the road. Even if they want to come, they can see that this veteran will come out again. Don't dare, it is my honor to be able to accompany General Niu to King's Hao. The officers laughed when they were in the mine. They could have offended the General Niu a lot. Now that they learned that the General Niu with a hot temper was going to leave the mountain, they were so frightened that they were afraid of being blamed in the future. What surprised them was that Niu Ben had been calm as usual along the way, and treated them respectfully. It seems that these 5 years of hard labor have gradually smoothed out the edges and corners of this veteran. In front of you is General Niu. Suddenly a loud shout sounded in front, and then I saw a young man in plate armor striding in front of Niu Ben. Niu Ben's eyes first fell on the young man's armor, then he looked at the young man and asked suspiciously, "Dare to ask who you are?" "General Niu, I'm Luo Xin." Since Xiao Ming instructed him to place Niu Ben, Luo Xin has been waiting at the gate of the city these days. After 3 days, he finally saw Niu Ben, who was escorted by the officers when he was in Chang'an. He had seen Niu Ben, but it took 5 years for the once glorious General Niu Ben to become a little old-fashioned, so he asked a question just now. "Luo Xin? Are you Luo Quan's second son?" Niu Ben asked. "Exactly, I played at the general's mansion 6 years ago." Luo Xin laughed. Niu Ben raised his arm and grabbed Luo Xin's shoulder. "Well, 6 years have gone by in a flash, and you have become so familiar that I don't even know you, but you can still see that old boy Luo Quan from this look." Luo Xin grinned. Luo Quan and Niu Ben always advanced and retreated together when they were generals in the court. Looking up at the growing rain, Luo Xin said, "Uncle Niu, it's inconvenient to speak here. King Qi specially ordered me to go to the palace as soon as the general came." "King Qi?" Niu Ben was in a complicated mood. Ever since Xiao Wangsun sent him to serve hard labor in the mines, he has been disheartened. "This is 100 officials of the Great Yu Kingdom, and it is also to Xiao Wangsun," he said. "I am a criminal. What is there to see? Or send me straight to the place of hard labor?" Luo Xin was stunned for a moment, and he said, "Uncle Niu, why did you say this?" This time His Majesty asked Uncle to come to King's Hao to let Uncle come out of the mountain again and resist the barbarians. On the way, Niu Ben was escorted directly from the mine to King's Hao. He also told some interesting facts about King's Hao. It's just that they don't know what the barbarians are about to go south. After all, it's not their turn to know what's going on in the courtroom. However, seeing that Xiao Huangman, who had come to give an order, was very attentive to Niu Ben, and based on their intuition, they believed that Niu Ben would come out of the mountain again. "Barbarian?" Niu Ben said in surprise. Luo Xin wanted to say it directly, but when he saw the 2 officers behind Niu Ben, he said, "You two go to King's Hao Prefecture to receive the reward and then go back by yourself." "Yes." The 2 officers were overjoyed and turned around and entered King's Hao City. At this time, Luo Xingke said, "Uncle, this time, His Majesty asked Uncle to come to King's Hao to do hard labor, but now he asked Concubine Zhen to secretly send a secret letter to His Highness, asking Uncle to come out of the mountain again. The barbarians will soon go south and King's Hao City is in danger." "Is it, Uncle? Do you want to see with your own eyes the King's Hao City that you once defended in bloody battles again? Is this true?" Niu Ben suddenly woke up like a sleeping lion. He said excitedly, "Your Majesty, it has been 6 years, do you finally understand?" Luo Xin was equally excited and said, "This time I came to King's Hao, because His Majesty secretly supported me, but the current situation is too complicated. Uncle should follow me to see His Highness. His Highness will explain everything to Uncle." Niu Ben's frustration with Xiao Wangsun was the compromise he made to the barbarians several times. Back then, when he was in King's Hao City, he could only watch King Kang's fiefdom being trampled on by the barbarians, but he couldn't dispatch a single soldier over the years. This has always been an indelible memory in his heart, and now, Xiao Wangsun finally understood. "Well, since that's the case, let's go now," Niu Ben said. When the 2 arrived at the Qi Wang mansion, they learned that Xiao Ming had gone to the equipment division since the morning and had not returned, so they waited for a while at the Wang mansion. At this time, Niu Ben asked, "Why is your Highness going to the Department of Equipment?" In Niu Ben's cognition, the feudal lord would never go to such a lowly place. Luo Xin said, "This is what makes King Qi different from ordinary people. If I say one thing, I am afraid that my uncle will be even more shocked." "What's up?" "The nobles of King Zhao were killed and exiled by the king of Qi in just a few months. Now the remaining nobles can only hide in the mountains and become pirates." "Are you surprised?" Luo Xin laughed. "In this matter? I vaguely remember that there seemed to be 4 noble families in King Zhao that year, the king, the grandson, the kin, and the Wei. Now this king and son's furniture have been destroyed, and their family property has been confiscated. Among them, the Qin and Wei families have taken the initiative to dissolve the trilogy, and now they are purely a family of merchants." Niu Ben nodded. "When Xiaoming was in Chang'an, he was the most disrespectful of the princes, but he was so bold now, which is really unexpected." Luo Xin's first impression of Xiaoming was when he was in Chang'an, and the more he stayed in King Zhao, the more he felt that Xiaoming was different. Just from the prosperity of King Zhao City, it can be seen that Xiaoming is very popular in the fief. It is precisely because of this that he gradually let go of his prejudice against Xiaoming. Not just for that poem. The two were talking when they heard a loud laugh from far and near. But Xiaoming rode a horse and arrived at the palace under the protection of guards. Chapter 146. "Your Highness." When Xiaoming approached, Luo Xin clasped his fists and saluted. Jumping off the horse, Xiaoming asked Luo Xin to excuse himself, and at the same time looked at the old man in his 50s beside him, and said, "If I guessed correctly, this is Niu Ben." General Niu Ben looked at King Qi up and down, and saw a little bit of Xiao Wangsun's shadow on Xiaoming's body. He bowed and saluted. "Sinner Niu Ben has seen His Royal Highness King Qi. General Niu is exempt from the ceremony. This king can't bear the heavy ceremony of the old general." Xiaoming smiled. "Old general, please follow me to the palace and talk about it in detail." The 3 entered the palace together, and Xiaoming asked Luo to prepare tea for the 3 in the main hall. Xiaoming invited Luo Xin and Niu Ben to sit down. At this time, he bowed to Niu Ben and said, "The old general has suffered, and the emperor has been ashamed for these years. Let me make amends to the old general on his behalf." Niu Ben was no longer the rebellious Niu Ben he used to be. He got up and said, "How dare a sinner be a great gift from His Highness? I am already grateful that His Majesty can think of my old bones. The old general is too modest." Xiaoming said with a smile, "The old general has great military exploits, and this king also admires it. This time, I hope the old general can help this king to break the danger of the barbarians going south." Niu Ben heard the words and said, "Luo Xin was at the gate of the city just now, but he stopped talking. His Highness talked about this again this time." "What happened?" Xiaoming and Luo Xin glanced at each other. "So they talked about what happened in the courtroom. These thieves who eat inside and outside, bring harm to the country and the people. If Niu Ben is here, I will definitely cut their skins." Although Niu Ben's temperament has been somewhat restrained in the past 5 years, this matter still makes him very angry. "The old general doesn't need to be angry, it's the truth. I can only do my best to obey the destiny." Xiaoming said Zun Xingcheng had already gone to Kangzhou to repair the city wall at this time, and he brought almost all the cement produced in Kingzhou City. "Hey, poor Your Majesty is going to fight with the barbarians to destroy the arrogance of the barbarians. These thieves are really a bunch of killing talents." Niu Ben said after a pause. He said, "However, if we can defeat the barbarians from heading south, we can also let the barbarians know the greatness of our country in Great Yu, and there will be no more Sugang and relatives." "Exactly, so this time I only hope that the old general will help this king," Xiaoming said while taking the opportunity. Niu Ben nodded and said slowly, "The old minister is guilty of guilt, and His Highness will not abandon him." Xiaoming was relieved. He thought that this Niu Ben would still hate Xiao Wangsun for assigning him to hard labor, but he didn't expect that Niu Ben's temperament was not as violent as the legend. In this way, he has really reached the level of a commander-in-chief. As for the fierce man Niu Ben, Xiaoming naturally did not expect him to defend the city. A Kangzhou city was enough for Lu Fei, and his heart was far more than that. The large area of Guansong land outside Kangzhou city was once the homeland of the Great Yu Kingdom. If it can be recovered, it may be possible to further expand its fiefdom. The most important thing is that if you can take down Shanhaiguan, you will be able to keep the barbarians out of the pass, and you will no longer have to worry about the threat of the barbarians. General, when the 3 of them were drinking tea and talking about the barbarians, suddenly Lu Fei's voice came. Then I saw Lu Fei walked in excitedly and looked at Niu Ben. "General, is it really you?" Niu Ben was also a little surprised when he saw Lu Fei. "Lu Fei, General, it's me," Lu Fei said excitedly. Xiaoming and Luo Xin looked at each other. Xiao Ming couldn't help asking, "Old General, do you know Lu Fei?" When Lu Fei passed by the King Zhao government office just now, he heard two foreign officers talking about escorting Niu Ben. After inquiring carefully, he understood the reason and immediately came to Qi Wangfu. Lu Fei said at this time, "When the general was in Kangzhou City, I was the general's personal guard. Later, when the general returned to Chang'an, our local soldiers stayed behind. Hey, this is an old thing, but looking at you like this, it seems that you are very trustworthy in front of His Highness." Yes, I didn't see you wrong back then." Niu Ben said. Lu Fei was a little excited and said, "I dare not forget the general's teaching." Xiao Ming's gaze went back and forth between the three of them. In the past, there was only Lu Fei in the King's Zhao army. Now that Luo Xin came, the two were arguing endlessly. Now there is a bull run, and it seems that it can completely suppress the two, and this Niu Ben has quite a few means to govern the army, and his soldiers are very disciplined. In this way, he can rest assured, lest Lu Fei and Luo Xin quarrel endlessly and affect the training of the King's Zhao army. Moreover, Niu Ben was a former general, and he was able to lead 100,000 troops with ease, and was very proficient in various affairs in the army. Unlike Lu Fei, who has not yet established a military management system, he does not know how to use military funds in his hands. The angry Xiao Ming had to take the money back to Pang Yukan and let him manage it on his behalf. Now that Niu Ben is here, the management system in the army should not be a problem. When the military and government are separated, it will be easier for oneself to fully grasp the military and government, and avoid mutual interference between the military and the government, which is unclear. The experience of later generations told him that the army should not be mixed with administrative officials, otherwise it would be easy to cause trouble for the military. All it takes is to obey orders and not have their own minds. No matter who leads the army, the object of the army's allegiance must be him, and this is also one of the reasons why he established a long history team in the army. Long history represents him, and he masters the army's thinking, so that the army will not be in chaos. In this way, whether it is Lu Fei, Luo Xin, or Niu Ben, the premise of their command of the army is to get their own advice, and when they want to take them down, the army is still as stable as Mount Tai, and it will not change because of the change of the coach. This is the right army for him. It is precisely because of this that Xiao Ming is not worried about Niu Ben, Lu Fei or Luo Xin, because the army belongs to him, and Lu Fei and others are only responsible for commanding the army to fight and perform their duties. After Lu Fei's mood eased for a while, Xiao Ming said, "Old General, since Lu Fei was once your subordinate, it seems that only you can control this thorn. In this way, the governor of the King's Zhao army, the position is none other than an old general. In addition to the title of the feudal king, Xiao Ming held the position of the governor of the 6 states, and the military talismans of the 6 states are all in his hands. Even if Lu Fei mobilized the army, he still needed to ask for a soldier talisman. This commander belongs to the military position in the Great Yu Kingdom, and under the commander is the commander in charge of each state, and now the King's Zhao army is the strongest army in the 6 states. After all, with Xiao Ming's current financial resources, he can only focus on cultivating an army." Chapter 147. Xiao Ming and number 039, S. Careful thoughts. "Your Highness, this," Niu Ben hesitated. Xiao Ming jokingly said, "This king can only give the old general the post of governor. In this big governor, he is the king. His Royal Highness, I don't dare. It's just that the old minister is only guilty of guilt, and suddenly he is serving as the governor in the army. I am afraid that the generals and soldiers in the army will be dissatisfied." Niu Ben said Lu Fei can also be said to have great military exploits, but now he is just a captain, and so is Luo Xin. It is precisely because of this that Niu Ben is so worried. After all, in the 5 years that he disappeared in the Great Yu Kingdom, many soldiers would not remember who he was. Old general, don't have to worry. If this king makes the old general under Lu Fei and Luo Xin's hands, they will feel uncomfortable all over. Xiao Ming smiled. Lu Fei and Luo Xin suddenly laughed. Lu Fei said, "That is, even if you invite the old general to serve as the governor, you can also take the crap of the barbarians with us." Luo Xin also said, "The old general doesn't need to be too modest. This post of governor has been vacant. It seems that His Royal Highness really had foresight and reserved it for the old general." Hearing this, Xiao Ming smiled unnaturally. This governor has been vacant all the time. He just hangs Lu Fei with his position. Otherwise, how could this thorn be so obedient? Now that Niu Ben is here, he is not worried that Lu Fei will cause trouble again in the army. But Niu Ben never gives face to those powerful children in the army, and this Lu Fei seems to be in awe of this Niu Ben, and it is estimated that he will be honest in the future, and he will save himself from worrying this. Since that's the case, it's not right for the sinner to do his part. Niu Ben hesitated and said after taking over the post of governor of Qingzhou, this Niu Ben basically settled down in Qingzhou. Xiao Wangsun sent Niu Ben here, and the implication is that Niu Ben will stay in Qingzhou in the future after all. He once said angrily in the courtroom and said that Niu Ben would never be hired. Let him go back. Niu Ben again, he will slap himself in the face. Therefore, it was the most suitable choice for Niu Ben to come to Qingzhou to do hard labor. After all, how Xiaoming used Niu Ben was not something he could manage. When the courtier mentioned it, it was a big deal to pretend to be stupid for a while. Taking this into consideration, Xiaoming will take up the position of governor at once, and this veteran will be his person in the future. Given the official position, Niu Ben seemed to have some thoughts on his mind, and his expression was hesitant. Xiaoming smiled and asked, "Is the old general worried about his family, His Royal Highness? How do you know?" Niu Ben asked in surprise. His family is still in Chang'an, and he has served in hard labor for all these years, and he doesn't know how they are doing? Now serving as the governor of Qingzhou, he can be said to have reappeared, and he has to let his family come over and not suffer in Chang'an as a vassal king. Xiaoming naturally has to consider these things. He has been learning the knowledge in the technology library these days. Naturally, the way to use people is to think what he thinks in order to keep people's hearts. He said, "It's just human nature. Don't worry about the old general. I have sent someone to Chang'an to bring the old general's family to Qingzhou. And I have also prepared a house for the old general in Qingzhou City." Hearing this, Niu Ben was deeply moved. He didn't expect Xiaoming to think so much for him. He said, "Thank you, Your Highness. The old minister can only repay with death. That's not necessary. The old general just needs to rectify the two in front of him, and stop messing around in the army." Xiaoming glanced at Lu Fei and Luo Xin. Both their faces turned pale, and Lu Fei cried bitterly, "Your Highness, I didn't mess with you. You can't hurt me." "That's right. Colonel Lu and I are just a competition in the army, and there is no disagreement." Luo Xin hurriedly explained. Xiaoming just smiled and did not speak. Niu Ben suddenly understood the meaning of the words. He said, "Lu Fei, Luo Xin, you all know how I manage the army. Your Highness does not understand the affairs of the army. You can still handle it. In my case you can handle it." No, when Lu Fei saw Niu Ben, he was like a mouse seeing a cat. He said with a smile, "General, I don't dare. Luo Xin was very helpless. He was really happy when Niu Ben came, but thinking that he was under Niu Ben's hands from now on, he couldn't help feeling chills behind him. There will be no easy days. Xiaoming is satisfied. What he needs now is a person who can command the entire army. After all, he needs to do too many things, and the army is extremely important. This commander is of great importance. When the matter in the army was settled, Xiaoming also took a reassurance. He said to the three, "It's not too early. I'll ask the servants to prepare some food. Let's eat here at noon." Lu Fei and Luo Xin smiled happily upon hearing this. Who knew that the food in Prince Qi's mansion was the only one in the world, and could not be eaten anywhere else after the long journey? Niu Ben was also a little hungry. Seeing Lu Fei and Luo Xin looking happy and curious, he nodded. Xiaoming called Aster at this time, asked him to prepare food, and asked Luo to get wine. The monarchs and ministers of the Great Yu Kingdom eat at different tables, but the same food is placed in front of everyone. Now Xiaoming can be considered to be out of poverty and become rich. Even if there is money in the palace, it is well organized by Aster. There are now 100 servants in the mansion, and there are more than 10 more servant girls. Recently, Aster wants to buy a group of dancing girls and singers for the palace, saying that this is not laughed at by the guests in the palace of the deified feudal lord with a pure mind. Xiaoming did not refuse because of the lack of entertainment. The antiquity is too boring, and it would be nice if someone danced for him at night. At least he could relieve his boredom in the palace. Besides, Aster and Luo seem to have received training in this area in the palace. They are good at singing and dancing, and they can also choreograph dances. Thinking of this, he is a little moved. Men, there are some pleasing things to look at, and it is also very refreshing to work. However, he still has some principles, and he will not be as smoky as the big family of the Wang family, and he has other purposes. The common people also need entertainment, and he knows very well that people who have nothing to do in their spare time like to cause trouble at this time. If there are some entertainment activities, they can divert their attention. His technology library not only includes technology, but also many works of art. And art is also a means of inspiring people. He wants to create a Qingzhou with a different atmosphere, and the Renaissance is naturally indispensable, and this requires a birthplace of art. Obviously, it also comes from his palace. However, Xiaoming, who was full of great power, had to admit that he did carry private goods when he was doing business. He just wanted to see the two girls dancing. He was thinking that the banquet had been arranged. Lu Fei was holding a jar of drunk King's Hao full of wine for Niu Ben, and he said, "General, you can try our King's Hao liquor. I promise you will pour it in 3 bowls." Chapter 148 Iron Mold Casting. 3 bowls to pour. Niu Ben squinted at Lu Fei, thinking that this kid didn't know how much he could drink when he was by his side before. Why did he say such nonsense today? Lu Fei didn't notice Niu Ben's expression. He said, "General, I'm not bragging, don't you believe me? Try it." When this pure wine was put into the bowl, Niu Ben suddenly felt the difference, and a strong wine smell shot straight to the tip of his nose. In the past, he also tasted the delicious wine of the Great Yu Kingdom, but today it was an eye-opener. The secret recipe for this wine comes from His Royal Highness. Luo Xin naturally tasted the drunk King's Hao, and since then other wines can no longer be eaten. It's just that this drunk King's Hao is not cheap, and Luo Quan is very stingy. He would rather go to another mansion to give him a drink than buy it himself. It is precisely because of this that he often visits Xiaoming, but eats and drinks. Niu Ben took another look at Xiaoming. This King Qi was more and more interesting. After 5 years in the mine, he just hoped that he would be satisfied when he met the master of the Ming dynasty. Even so, the 3 bulls would have looked down on the old man. Niu Ben licked his tongue. For 5 years, he hadn't drank a drop of alcohol. At this time, he couldn't be greedy. He picked up a bowl of wine and drank it all at once. Then he drank it by himself, and then 2 more glasses. The 3 of them wanted to speak out, but it was too late. Ha, good wine. Niu Ben laughed loudly. This wine was really tasty. Lu Fei, how's it going? 3 bowls can't beat me. Lu Fei smiled awkwardly, thinking that as soon as Jiu Jin came up, he would find out. Xiaoming shook his head helplessly. None of the people in the army were bad at drinking, and he served wine and food to enhance the feelings of the generals in the army. This would also make it easier for him to manage the army, but it was his original intention to get Niu Ben drunk. As the saying goes, you can see the truth after drinking. You can also see a person's character from a person's wine, and you can also have an estimate of this bull run in your heart. After all, this Niu Ben has a good reputation, but he doesn't know his true temperament, so it is time to try it out. The old general is good at drinking, Lu Fei, and then fill the general with wine. Let the general have a good drink today. Xiaoming said. Luo Xin kept his head down while eating. He was also drunk by Lu Fei when he first came to King's Hao. Xiaoming saw all the nonsense that day. Niu Ben was like a thirsty person who drank water, and drank 3 bowls again. At this time, the spirit of the wine suddenly came up, and his body was a little swaying. At this time, Xiaoming asked, "Old general, this time I came to King's Hao, I really wronged the general." Niu Ben rubbed his eyes, only to feel his head dizzy, but his courage suddenly opened like a dam bursting, and he just wanted to spit out all the sullenness in his heart. He said vaguely, "His Royal Highness, the old minister is not wronged when he came to this King's Hao, but the 5 years of being assigned to the mine by His Majesty is really wronged. I think I am dedicated to the country and loyal to the liver, not for this big you. The country's future is prosperous, but my words from the bottom of my heart have actually been exchanged for these 5 years of hard labor." While talking, Niu Ben suddenly burst into tears. Very sad. Luo Xin and Lu Fei were moved, and they were deeply touched by the fact that the traitorous officials of the Great Yu Kingdom are now in power, and the loyal ministers and good generals have repeatedly failed to achieve their goals. Therefore, Niu Ben's words also made them sad. From these words, Xiaoming heard Niu Ben's dissatisfaction with Xiao Wangxun and his dissatisfaction with the imperial court. He said, "The old general has suffered. In my King's Hao, this king will not let the old general's pearl be dusted." The more he wanted to drink, Niu Ben said sullenly, "When you treat me with a state officer, I should repay it with a state officer. You treat me with a passerby, and I will repay it with a passerby. You treat me with grass, and I should repay it with hatred. Today, your highness treats me with a countryman, and I will repay his highness with a countryman. Okay. The general really has a real temperament." Xiaoming raised his glass and drank it. This was the general he wanted. After saying this, Niu Ben immediately lay on the table, drunk and unconscious. Lu Fei and Luo Xin gave a wry smile. Today's food and drinks were unbearable, so they helped Niu Ben up and sent him back to King's Hao camp. Xiaoming watched the 3 of them leave, recalling Niu Ben's words. Everyone knew that repaying grievances with virtue, but they did not know that what Confucius really said was repaying grievances directly and repaying virtues with virtues. It is this kind of repaying grievances with virtue and harming the ages, which led to the early foreign policy of the Great Yu Kingdom to influence the barbarians with virtue, but they do not know that the hearts of non-Chinese people will be different, and the barbarians can only be treated with coercion, not virtue. The three of them had just left when Aster walked in and said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness, there's news from the Department of Equipment that it was made by an iron mold. Would you like to take a look at it, Your Highness?" "Really?" Xiaoming was overjoyed in the morning. He was busy with this matter in the equipment department. Later, Niu ran over and he had to come back. At that time, Chen Qi and his craftsmen were pouring iron molds. Let Aster prepare the horse. Xiaoming went to the equipment department at this time. Chen Qi and a group of craftsmen were assembling iron molds together. "His Royal Highness, let's pour the artillery," Chen Qi said excitedly when Xiaoming came over. In a month, they finally succeeded in making a qualified iron mold. Now that the craftsmen have experience in making iron molds, the next iron mold will be much easier. "Let me see," Xiaoming said excitedly. Since arriving in Qingzhou, he has always regarded economic development as his top priority, not because he does not pay attention to the army, but he understands that without money, food, and people's hearts, it is impossible to organize an army, and without the steel foundation and the training of craftsmen, it is impossible to produce artillery. He invested a lot of money, and extorted craftsmen in order to be able to produce such a national weapon as artillery. Today Xiaoming was so excited. Chen Qi and the other craftsmen were also happy, and a month of nights was finally not in vain. At this time, the mud cannon embryo outside the iron mold has been knocked off, and a black iron mold appears. Like the mud cannon embryo, this iron mold is also divided into 7 sections. As long as these 7 sections are combined, you can proceed step by step and produce artillery. Compared with the artillery, the weight of this iron mold is heavier than the artillery itself. After all, this iron mold has to be used repeatedly, and the quality must pass the test. "Making a cannon tomorrow," Xiaoming said excitedly. Looking at the cannon model on the ground, there is not much time left for him, and the production of this iron mold is just the beginning. The production of artillery also has to consider the level of the craftsman. A smile appeared on Chen Qi's face, and he said, "His Royal Highness will tell us the essentials of this cannon casting. I just hope that the cannon can be cast at one time. This can't be rushed. You have to be steady," Xiaoming said with a smile. Then he summoned the craftsmen of the equipment department and talked to them again about how to produce artillery and the details that need to be paid attention to in the process of producing artillery. Under the action of the technology spar, the production image of the artillery seemed to appear in everyone's mind, which made them deepen their memory of the production process again. Chapter 149 Barbarian News. After a few days of cloudy and rainy days, the sky suddenly cleared up. The sapphire-like dome is high and far, and a few white clouds float gently, and the beauty is like a pool of water. Yesterday, I taught in the equipment department, and today the equipment department will officially try to produce artillery. Seeing that the date for the barbarians to go south is approaching, there is not much time left for him, and Li San and Wang Zhuan have been inquiring about the movement on the grassland these days. Today, the two went to the palace together to report the information they got to Xiaoming. "His Royal Highness, we have heard that the barbarians and the Ottomans seem to have reached some kind of reconciliation. 3 months ago, the barbarians returned to Chengdu with the slaves and craftsmen they brought back from the Ottomans," Li San said. "In other words, the barbarians' westward expedition is over?" Xiaoming asked. "I'm afraid that's the case." Wang Zhuan looked solemn. This is indeed very bad news for Xiaoming. After conquering the grassland tribes, the barbarians have become the most powerful empire in the northern land. Under the premise that the great Yu kingdom was declining day by day and passively defended, the barbarians thought they had no worries, so they began their expedition to the west. After wiping out a series of small western states, the barbarians encountered the Ottoman Empire at its peak. After 3 years of hostile expeditions, the two sides finally realized that the other side was a behemoth, so they stopped their troops and returned to the court. As a result, the pressure on the great Yu kingdom will suddenly increase. Recalling the western expedition of modern Mongolia, it seems that after the western expedition was completed, Mongolia easily destroyed the southern Song dynasty. Is there any worse news? Xiaoming smiled bitterly. "What do you know about the barbarian population, army, weapons and equipment?" Wang Zhuan said. "The bad news is that the barbarians seem to have acquired a siege weapon during their western expedition, called the Hu Hu cannon, which is said to be able to throw a 300-pound boulder 500 meters away." Back to the gun? Xiaoming asked. "Are you sure he was thrown a stone? I'm sure that the merchants on the grassland have described that this kind of back and forth seems to be an advanced stone-throwing tool." Wang Zhuan said. Xiaoming let out a light sigh of relief. As long as the barbarians have not acquired the artillery technology, but before there are no artillery, if there is such a stone-throwing tool, It is indeed a huge threat to King Zhao City. He remembered that Mongolia seemed to be using a similar stone-throwing tool in modern times, and this stone-throwing tool also came from that part of the western regions. Li San said at this time, "Your Highness, if the barbarians use this kind of thing to attack King Zhao City, the city wall may not be able to hold up for Xiaoming. It is fortunate that the barbarians do not have artillery. This kind of giant rock-throwing machine with a range of 500 meters is far less than the range of artillery. It can be destroyed in advance within the range of artillery, so there's nothing to be afraid of. It's not worth worrying about. Is there any other information?" Xiaoming asked. Li San hurriedly said at this time, "The population of the barbarians cannot be accurately determined, but in general, there are still 2 million households." "So much?" Xiaoming was startled. "In recent years, some barbarians have settled in Changbei Mountain, and the population has grown a lot." Li San said. Now Xiaoming finally understands what a headache is. Today's barbarians are no longer a pure nomadic people, but a half-farming and half-pastoral nation, and such a nation is even more deadly to the Great Yu Kingdom because half-farming and half-grazing means that the logistics of the barbarians will be better guaranteed, making it easier for the barbarians to expand. And the following sentence from Wang Zhuan gave Xiaoming a headache. "This is just the population of the barbarians. The barbarians have always been used to looting slaves. Now the ratio of the regular army to the slave army has reached 1 to 5. The merchants said that every time the barbarians marched in front of the western expedition, a large number of slave troops would march. When these slave troops were finished fighting, and the enemy was exhausted, the barbarian cavalry would attack." Li San said, "We have been exploring on the grassland these days and found that the barbarian cavalry is arresting the people north of Kangzhou City. These people used to be the people of the Great Yu Kingdom. It seems that the barbarians are trying to use it against the people of the western region's way to deal with us." After a pause, Li San clenched his fists and said, "His Royal Highness, when the people of Deu Kingdom are forced to walk in front of the barbarians to attack the city, what should we do? This barbarian is extremely shameless and has no humanity at all." Wang Zhuan said angrily, "The despicable tactics of catching the common people as meat shields abound in history, among which the Meng and Qin clans played the most eloquently. It is precisely because of the clever use of the puppet army and the common people that a small ethnic group will conquer a country with a population dozens of times its own, and now the population of this barbarian nation is only 10 to 1 with that of the Great Yu Kingdom. What should I do? If Kangzhou City is captured, this king will be the next King Kang." Xiaoming said in a deep voice. Li San and Wang Zhuan looked at each other, and they seemed to understand Xiaoming's thoughts. The two told Xiaoming about the barbarian race, which was nothing more than the way the barbarian race fought at present. The barbarians use a compound bow made of animal tendons. This kind of bow and arrow has a long range, and the barbarian cavalry can also turn around and shoot arrows while escaping. It is this method that makes the people of the western regions repeatedly defeated by the barbarians. However, the people of the Great Yu Kingdom have already learned about the characteristics of the barbarians. Because of this, the army of the Great Yu Kingdom will not go out of the city to fight against the barbarians on the grasslands, because this is purely courting death. In addition to the bow and arrow can reach a range of more than 180 meters. The most deadly part of the barbarian army is that the discipline is very strict, which is far more dangerous than the bow and arrow. An army that is not afraid of death is truly terrifying. Now Xiaoming can imagine the situation where the barbarian infantry still climbed up from the corpse pile under the fire of the artillery. In addition to arresting the common people, the merchants on the grassland said that the barbarian army has been training very frequently recently, and they are very vigilant about the barbarians of Deu who travel to and from the grasslands. Many merchants have been arrested by the barbarians. Li San said. Finally Xiaoming nodded. The barbarian race was obviously abnormal, and it seemed that it was only a matter of time before they attacked the Great Yu Kingdom. He said, "Continue to keep an eye on the dynamics of the barbarians, especially the dynamics of the barbarian army, and report to me in time." Li San and Wang Zhuan nodded and turned to leave. At this time, Xiaoming got up and went to the equipment department. Fortunately, he let the equipment department produce artillery with all his strength, otherwise he would not be able to resist the return of the artillery catapult 500 meters away. A 300-pound stone against a city wall is not much weaker than an artillery bombardment. After all, the artillery also shoots solid bullets, and he doesn't have the ability to produce such things as explosive bullets. Thinking of this, he quickened his pace, and a deep sense of crisis enveloped him. Chapter 150 Trial Production of Artillery. Different from the tranquility of the past, the people of Kingzhou City clearly felt that the atmosphere of the equipment department was a little dignified these days, because I don't know when, the number of soldiers guarding the equipment department suddenly increased several times, and all of them were wearing silver full-body armor, murderous, and any civilians who came close to the equipment department would be immediately driven away. Everyone who enters the equipment department needs to show the token and accept the interrogation. Someone once saw a person who did not have the token trying to infiltrate, and was beaten by the soldiers on the spot and sent to the prison. Among the various signs, many people are speculating about what happened in the equipment department, and only Xiaoming knew this best. At this time, he arrived at the door of the equipment department and handed the horse to the guard at the door. He came at the right time, and Chen Qi in the equipment department was bringing the craftsman to prepare to pour the produced molten iron into the iron mold. Although King Xiao can produce high-quality steel, not all steels can be used to cast guns. In fact, in modern times, until the advent of crude gun steel, guns were made of only three materials: copper, bronze, and iron. Of course, copper does not need to be explained. This thing is completely throwing money. In the country of Dayou, where the mining rate is very low, it is almost like using gold to produce toilets. Bronze is an alloy and requires different metals, among which lead and tin are indispensable. Similarly, the lack of these metals in King Xiao is not easy for Xiaoming. Therefore, he can only honestly choose cast iron guns. Although this kind of guns has drawbacks, it is still the mainstream of modern artillery from the 15th century to the end of the 18th century. After all, relatively speaking, the pursuit of any product is cost-effective, and cast iron guns obviously have a great advantage in cost-effectiveness. Your Highness, you can port right away. The iron mold of the artillery is erected next to the blast furnace. As long as the furnace door on the blast furnace is opened, the red molten iron will be poured into the iron mold. However, there are still many things to prepare before that. The casting of artillery is a delicate job. A failure will cause great losses, and it will also delay the casting of the next artillery. Therefore, before pouring the cannon, Xiaoming instructed the craftsman to strictly follow the procedure of casting the cannon step by step. Under his supervision, a craftsman began to paint the inner surface of the iron mold with a mixture of fine rice husks and fine sand. The preparation of these two things was also very strict. The rice husks were crushed into powder and sieved with a sieve for 3 times. It took more than 10 times to get a uniform powder, and the sediment was basically the same, and the particles inside were basically the same size. This is to avoid holes of different sizes on the gun body, and also to prevent the gun body and the iron mold from sticking together. Otherwise the gun and the iron mold will be scrapped together. After the first coat of paint is finished, the artisan reapplies the second coat, which is made of fine coal powder ground into powder. The purpose is very simple. It is for carburizing. As we all know, the higher the carbon content in iron, the greater the hardness of the iron. Hard. Thereby reducing the rate of fire of the gun. The brushing of these two coatings is also very particular. Be sure to be even and careful. When the craftsman finished painting, Xiaoming checked it again and asked the craftsman to deal with some flaws. Then let the craftsman fasten the iron mold with iron hoops. At the same time, some craftsmen began to heat the iron mold to prevent the outer layer of molten iron from cooling too fast. When the molten iron contacted the iron mold, which would affect the carburizing effect. After the completion of these tasks, Xiaoming asked Chen Qi to put the ceramic core specially made into the gun mold. Generally speaking, the production of artillery requires the use of mud cores. But drawing on the experience of later generations, in order to improve the quality of artillery as much as possible, he decided to use ceramic cores. In this way, rapid cooling of the inner side of the gun can be achieved by injecting in the middle of the ceramic core, thereby increasing the strength of the inner bore. This process is also called water tightness. Let's start. Xiaoming asked expectantly after the preliminary preparations were completed. Nodding his head, Chen Qi looked excited. After a busy month, the first artillery piece in King Xiao was finally born. At this time, Chen Qi suddenly felt the anxiety and joy of a woman who is pregnant and about to give birth. With his lips trembling, Chen Qi shouted, "Pour in the molten iron." With an order, a craftsman suddenly opened the furnace door of the blast furnace, and red molten iron flowed down from the tube groove of the blast furnace with a hot breath. Even though he was 5 meters away from the blast furnace, Xiaoming still felt a hot roasting sensation on his face, and the craftsmen who were close by were sweating profusely. But at this moment, there was a sense of expectation in the eyes of every craftsman. Chen Qi told them that if the artillery was successfully cast, His Highness said that each person would be rewarded with 100 taels of silver, which would be an incentive for all craftsmen. For these ordinary craftsmen, who is not in pursuit of a better life, and money is their greatest encouragement. The red molten iron was slowly poured into the iron mold, and when the height of the molten iron was almost flush with the muzzle, A craftsman tapped the mold with a hammer. This is to make the molten iron deposition more uniform. After the molten iron was completely flush with the muzzle, the craftsman, who was also in charge of cooling, began to pour well water into the ceramic core of the iron mold at the same time. A craftsman stuffed a piece of dried pig intestines into the pottery core. The water in the ceramic core needs to be replaced continuously until the inner molten iron is completely solidified, and at this time, the cooling water needs to be replaced continuously. In this era, Xiaoming obviously couldn't find anything like a rubber tube, so he could only use sun-dried pig intestines instead. In fact, in ancient times, animal internal organs did replace the role of rubber tubes. Even in modern meat sausages, pig large intestines are still used. It can be seen that the toughness of pig large intestines is still good, and it can replace the role of some rubber tubes. The craftsmen above were busy replacing the cooling water after waiting for a while, after seeing the molten iron in the iron mold solidify. The rest of the craftsmen immediately began to remove the iron mold under the command of Xiaoming. At this time, the outer layer of the cannon was still red and hot, and many raised burrs could be seen outside. The craftsman responsible for cleaning the burrs immediately began to clean it to make the gun body round and smooth. After the work was over, Xiaoming finally breathed a sigh of relief, and the rest just waited for the gun body to completely cool down and solidify. Chen Qi said at this time, "Your Highness, is this cannon as amazing as you said? When will you pull this cannon out to test its power? How much more powerful than my Diyu country's fire cannon? You don't need to try to know the world." Xiaoming said to himself, the guns of the Great Yu Kingdom are only shoddy. Although they basically have the prototype of the guns, they are still not a little bit behind. The effect is really not as powerful as the Hu cannon that the barbarians grabbed from the western regions. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.